Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
A Crew for a King by Fallen Angel Codester. To become king of the pirates, you need a crew. And in order to reach his dream, Luffy will need all the help he can get. Extended crew story. Slightly more serious Luffy. Adios.
Cricket watched as the knock-up stream exploded, flying high into the sky and punching a hole in the Millennium Alonimbus. He was too far away to see if there was a ship riding the current, but he was sure they'd made it in time. The extra hands the Straw Hat crew provided had seen to that. "Good luck, you crazy kids," he shouted, raising his glass to the sky. "Hopefully you don't die." "Oh come on. What the hell is that?" Marshal D. Teach shouted, staring up at the column of water before him. "No clue," one of his men replied, "but it seems we lost Straw Hat Luffy." Marshal grumbled irritably at this, balling up the wanted poster into a ball and tossing it into the ocean. "Whatever," he muttered, "we'll see 'em again, boys. If they survive, that is. We've got other shit we need to do. Come on, let's make some space before Fire Fist comes a-knockin'." Luffy laughed like a maniac as Mary flew through the air, rocketing skyward at speeds he never thought he'd reach on a ship. "This is awesome," he shouted as Mary flew, trying his best to keep his footing. "Yeah, for now," Nami shouted, "but we're gonna fall if we don't do something, because we've drifted to the edge of the stream." Luffy looked over to see she was right. Mary was riding the edge of the stream, and they were losing speed by the second. "Luffy, make yourself useful and open the sails. We need to catch the explosion of wind the stream made." Obeying her swiftly, Luffy stretched his arms and flew up the mast, untying the sails and throwing them downward. Once the sails were released, they exploded upwards as they got the massive upstream of wind, Mary jerking forward as her speed increased. "That good?" he called down to Nami, who gave him a thumbs up. "Good work," she shouted. "With that, we should be able to ride this thing long enough. Soon, the wings will." Nami was interrupted by Mary groaning. Luffy watched in awe as the wind caught the wings installed on the sides of the ship, increasing their speed even more. Up and up they went, farther and farther into the clouds. Luffy was practically bouncing with excitement, keeping his eyes on the sky as they accelerated into this insane adventure. He was so excited, he was lightheaded. No, wait, he was definitely lightheaded. Once Luffy got back down on the deck, he nearly collapsed. "I'm kinda dizzy," he muttered. Looking around, he saw the others were dazed and confused as well, and it was only getting worse. "It's high-altitude sickness," Chopper shouted, on his knees. "There's less oxygen high in the sky. We're gonna suffocate before we get there." "I knew this was gonna get us killed," Usopp shouted. "Why did we have to do something so stupid?" "It's been an honor, big bro Luffy," Johnny shouted, rolling onto his back as he panted for air. "Tell my family I love them." "What family?" Luffy asked him, wondering who he was supposed to relay this information to. "This has got to be one of the lamest ways to go," Marianne muttered, coughing as she gasped for a breath. "Like, seriously? Suffocating as you fly thousands of feet into the air? What the hell, man?" "Well, at least we'll look good when we slam back down into the water and Mary shatters into a million pieces," Robin said, somehow still cheery. "Our bodies wouldn't survive the fall, of course, not from this height. We'd all turn into goo when we hit the water and be scattered with the current." "Maybe you should stop, Robin," Vivi offered weakly from the railing she was holding onto. "I'm already gonna be sick." Luffy felt like joining her. It was too hard to breathe up here. Maybe Cricket should have told them that and left them a bunch of those diving suits. They could throw a hose back down to regular heights and… Before Luffy's stupid thought could finish itself, Mary blasted through another layer of clouds and revealed the sun again. She lost her momentum quickly and fell back downward, slamming hard into what sounded like water. A horrific snap sounded, which he guessed was the wings coming off. They had been through a lot, so it was a bit presumptuous to assume they'd survive the journey. He couldn't tell though, because he was paralyzed by oxygen deprivation just like the others were. Still, he fought to the railing and lifted himself up it, looking over weakly. "Holy shit," he shouted, "guys, take a look at this." He heard everyone grumbling behind him as they stood. but he was too stunned to look away. Spread out before them was a vast white ocean of clouds, which flowed like water all around them. He realized quickly that the sun was still hidden behind more clouds, but it was strong enough to shine through to where they were. An ocean in the sky, he heard Nami muttered. I can't believe it. Luffy laughed at this. Might want to write that one down for your map, he told her. She laughed in disbelief. I'll have two, yeah, she agreed. It's amazing something like this could exist. She looked down at the log pose, and Luffy noted a problem. Oi, he said, why is it still pointing up? The log pose on Nami's arm was still pointing skyward, telling them they had not traveled far enough. Oh come on, Yosaku shouted, sinking back down to the deck when he saw it. We have to go higher, man? How do we do that, I wonder, Nami murmured, watching the log pose intently before scanning their surroundings. Perhaps we only made it halfway up, Robin offered as she walked over to them. An interesting thought, a layered island in the clouds. We need to find a way up, Nami deduced. Which means we need to learn about the sea. Who wants to test the water for us? No one spoke. Don't make me pick for us, Nijiko warned. Whoever volunteers will get away from chore duty for a week. This caused a scramble to be chosen for the job. In the end, though, it was decided Sanji was going. His legs were stronger than everyone else's, so he could swim and dive faster than everyone. Well, I guess I gotta take one for the team, Sanji muttered, walking over to the railing. If I fall back down, I swear I'll haunt you all. I'll be counting my prayers that you do, Zoro replied. The cook cast him an irritated glare before he hopped up on the edge and peered over at the clouds. Well, here goes nothing. With this Sanji leapt from the railing, and fell downward. He splashed in the water like he would have below, and he surfaced easily as he would below. How is it? Nami asked him. Like regular water, I think, Sanji replied. He swam around the Mary in a circle, humming to himself. Yeah, it's just like water. No different. Can you dive? Nami asked. What, seriously? What if I fall out of the cloud? Luffy, grab his ankle, Nijiko instructed. Luffy did as he was told and stretched his arm, sending it down to Sanji's leg and grabbing a hold of him. There, now you won't fall out, Nijiko told him. Sanji looked apprehensive. I don't know, he said. This is seriously dangerous. Can we explore a different way? Please Sanji, Nami asked. Luffy noticed she was batting her eyelashes at the cook. For me? Sanji was below the clouds before Nami was finished her sentence, which made her snort. Luffy did his duty as rope, extending his arm more and more as Sanji dove deeper. Wow, the cook sure could go fast, couldn't he? Luffy had not stretched his arm like this in a while. Before long, though, something felt off. The resistance below felt much lighter, and his arm was swaying slightly. Huh, he muttered, wonder what that means. He watched his arm sway to and fro for a moment, wondering what it meant. Robin stood next to him and raised her arms, closing her eyes. He heard her suck in a breath quickly. Luffy, pull him up, she said, panic in her eyes. He's hanging out of the clouds only by your grip. What? Luffy shouted. He retracted his arm as quickly as possible and, within 20 seconds Sanji erupted from the water and flew back onto the deck, panting heavily as he held a hand to his chest. I am not volunteering next time, he exclaimed. Luffy laughed at this. Come on Sanji, he's swaying from my arm like that? No, I thought I was toast, you had a little fun. No, I didn't know. Sanji's complaints were interrupted as the clouds exploded around them. Luffy looked back to see a gigantic octopus had surfaced, glaring at them angrily. Seems there's local wildlife as well, Robin noted like as was an innocent curiosity. Luffy frowned. Can you guys get that? He asked. I'm kinda hungry for octopus. His order was carried out immediately, the 3 swordsmen on the crew flying into the air at the octopus. He was not prepared for the outcome. As Yosaku and Johnny slashed at its tentacles and Zoro went for its head, wherever it was, Luffy watched the octopus pop like a balloon would. Its skin exploded out in different directions as it died. The swordsmen landed in confusion, sharing curious looks. No resistance to that thing, Yosaku said, swinging his sword vertically to test his arm. It was so light and easily killed. Yeah, that was odd, Johnny said. Well, I've never killed an octopus before, so maybe they all do that. Don't be stupid, Zoro told his students as he sheathed his blades. Clearly sky animals are a bit different. It is fascinating, isn't it? Robin asked. Animals who have adapted to life in the skies, evolving to match their environment. Life finds a way. Can we find a way? Vivi asked as she hugged herself. It's kinda cold up here. Luffy wondered what she was talking about for a minute before he remembered Vivi's home was a desert. She was not accustomed to being exposed to cold temperatures. She'd had a coat on drum, after all. Here, currently, she did not. Good point, Luffy said. Alright guys, look around for anything that looks out of the ordinary. Well, more than we've already seen. So, I guess just look for something we haven't noticed yet? I dunno. What a spurring order, Nijiko teased. I'm so ready to go. I'm not as good at barking orders as you are, Commander Hard Ass, Luffy shot back. Sorry, did you say swabbing the deck for 2 months? No, nothing like that, haha, don't sweat it Nijiko. I would never. Nijiko looked annoyed with him, but he could tell she was entertained. Her eyes gave her away. That looks weird, Chopper noted. Luffy turned to see the raccoon dog holding their binoculars, looking out into the sky. What is? Usopp asked him, walking over. I can see another ship, Chopper said. Like ours. I mean, it's just over that wall. Chopper cried out in surprise and fell from the railing, backing away from it quickly. Chopper, what did you see? Luffy asked, senses on high alert now. The ship exploded into a fireball. Chopper shouted as he jumped to his feet and held onto Robin's leg. She looked mildly entertained by this. There was a rhino on the clouds, and it's coming this way. A rhino? Marianne asked. Hey Chopper, is hallucinations a part of high-altitude sickness? Because that sure sounds like a… Marianne, too, was interrupted as a man skillfully jumped up onto the Mary's deck. He looked as Chopper described, wearing a rhino mask and clutching a giant weapon. Don't start something you can't finish, my friend, Luffy warned him. The man did not reply and jumped for him, aiming his open palm at him. Luffy stretched his arm back to counter, but found he was sluggish and heavy. Huh? Was all he managed before the man slammed his palm into his face and drove him down into the deck. Luffy groaned as his head spun, just barely able to see the battle through his squinted eyes. The intruder swept Sanji off his legs and hit Zoro in the head with his weapon, both hitting the deck as well. Johnny and Yosaku charged him, but they too were fought off as the man slammed his palm into Johnny's stomach and his weapon into Yosaku's face. They both went down. Nijiko raised a pistol and aimed it at him, and Usopp was on the upper deck aiming at him with his rifle. One more step, the quartermaster warned, cocking the hammer on the revolver back, and Usopp takes your head off. Why yeah. Usopp called, trying to appear brave behind the scope. I won't miss at this distance. Luffy had to give the intruder credit. The weapons made him pause his assault. Luffy saw the man's muscles tensing up from where he lay. Another attack was coming. Guys, look out! He managed to groan out. Luckily, he hadn't needed to worry. Blue Bomb of Serenity. A small metal ball left Marianne's hands as she peered out of the cabin. The ball soared through the air and exploded. Blue paint flying straight at the intruder. The man did not dodge fast enough, and ended up drenched in the blue paint. Luffy smiled as the man's muscles began to relax and he stood up straighter. He was done, at least for now. Good job Mari, he called as the painter revealed herself. She blushed at his compliment. Someone has to save your sorry ass, Captain, she said. Stop hiding Chopper, he's done fighting for now. Chopper too appeared from the cabin, hiding his small frame behind Marianne's only slightly bigger frame. Luffy groaned as he got to his feet, rubbing his head. What the hell was that, you guys? Nami asked. He kicked all your asses. Something isn't right up here, big sis, Yosaku said. My head hurts, and my muscles are all slow and weak. That's the altitude doing that, Chopper explained. See, the human body runs on oxygen. Your blood, and by proxy your muscles, need oxygen to operate. There's less of it up here, so you guys aren't getting enough air to fight at full capacity. Wish I knew that before I ran at him, Zoro muttered, rubbing his head. What's Rhino Boy's deal? Let's find out, Marianne said, looking up at the man she'd stopped. Reveal yourself, stranger, or Usopp really will take your head off. As usual with victims of Mary's paint, the man complied with the order. He reached up and took off his mask, revealing his tattooed face. He had a swirly tattoo over and under one of his eyes, and one across his upper body on the same side. His brown hair was shaved except for one single braid, which fell to his lower back. His body was as built as some of the toughest guys Luffy knew, which wasn't a good sign. The man's only clothing was a grass skirt, held up by a rope belt. "Name's Wiper," the man said gruffly. "Sorry for trying to kill you. Wasn't chill of me." "Ah, right." Mary's paints made people talk very oddly when under the influence. "No, it wasn't," the small painter agreed. "What the hell was that about?" "All trespassers from the Blue Sea deserve it," Wiper replied. "Except you guys, I guess. You're pretty cool." "Blue Sea?" Nami asked. "He must mean the ocean below." "Yeah, that," Wiper agreed. "Most of them are pricks, like those guys I just dealt with. Thought you guys were too, but you're pretty nice." "Why attack?" Marianne pressed. "What's the reason you hate Blue Sea folk?" "Well, we already got enough problems with intruders cause of that bastard Enel," Wiper said. "We don't need more problems from stupid explorers. Not you guys, obviously. It's good practice." Wiper had just thrown a whole lot at them with no context, which just made Luffy's head hurt even more. Marianne looked displeased with his answers, so she cast a glance at him. Luffy noted she was probably asking his permission. He simply nodded at her. "Hey Wiper," she said. "We're gonna take a nap, okay? You must be tired." "Not really," Wiper said as Marianne approached him. "I can still fight. Wow. I guess I am tired." As the man spoke, Mari had painted a gray circle on his leg. "Exhaustion gray. I guess I'll take a nap too. Anywhere cool?" "Yeah, of course," Marianne said. The entire crew watched as Wiper walked over the wall of the cabin, sat with his back against it, and promptly fell asleep. They watched him for half a second, but he did not awaken. "What would we do without you, little sis Mari?" Johnny asked, scooping the girl up in his arms. "You're so cool it's unfair." "P put me down, you oaf," she said abashedly. "Not before I sing your praises," Johnny said, spinning in a circle with her, with glee. "Get his stuff from him," Luffy said. "All of it." The crew moved on his order, stripping Wiper of all his possessions save his skirt, moving it away from him. Luffy took inventory for a second and saw a shield with a painting on it, some sort of launcher, a knife, some weird shell things, and what looked like skates. What the hell was all that? He'd ask Robin later. Tie him up. "You got it," Zoro said. He and Sanji moved together and dragged Wiper to the mast of the ship, grabbed a pile of rope, and tied it tightly around him. Usopp gave pointers from nearby, and soon the intruder was covered in rope except for his head. "Good work, team," Luffy announced as Zoro and Sanji moved away. "Especially you, Mari. What would we do without you?" "Why, you'd be fine," Marianne muttered, her eyes being hidden beneath her sun hat when Johnny put a hand on her head with a laugh. "Now what do we do?" Vivi asked, still hugging herself to stay warm. "Wait until we wakes up." "We could," Nijiko said. "With you here, we can probably negotiate with him." "You think he'll listen to me?" Vivi asked. "You kidding?" Luffy asked, throwing an arm around her. "I bet the Pirate King could be swayed by you." "Vivi?" It was the princess's turn to look embarrassed. But Luffy didn't have time to tease her. "Let's see what we can do before we wakes up." "Nijiko, you're smart. Think up a plan with Vivi for when he wakes up." "You got it, Captain," she said. "What do you think, Vivi?" Luffy watched the two blue-haired girls walk off to the side to engage in planning, so he turned to the others. "The rest of us need to figure out what's going on around here. Perhaps I may be of help." Luffy jumped and whirled at the voice he didn't recognize, and what he saw didn't help deter him. A gigantic bird landed on the edge of the Mary, which was bright pink with red polka dots. That was disturbing by itself, let alone what got off its back. He could only be described as a knight. But knights lived in castles, he knew that. Why was a knight in the sky? "Don't surprise us like that," Nami said with her Klimatak ready. "You can see what happened to the last guy." Yes, the man agreed. Luffy realized he was old with a huge beard. Aside from that though, the poor guy was scrawny. Not a scary knight. You sure handed it to Wiper, and he'd a very strong Shandia warrior. Whoever subdued him must be very powerful. "Any more compliments and I swear I'm jumping overboard," Mari shouted, her face beet red. The knight ignored her outburst. "Where are my manners?" he asked. "My name is Gonfall." I am what they call the Knight of the Sky. Never would have guessed, Sanji noted. Gonfal ignored this too. And my compatriot's name is Pierre, he said, gesturing to the bird. The bird cawed and raised its wing at them. Hey little bro Chopper, Luffy heard Johnny whisper. Can you understand the bird? Chopper hummed in confusion. Kinda. It sounds like he's talking with a thick accent. It's hard to describe, but he talks different than animals down below. Who names a bird Pierre? Yosaku muttered to himself. I'd name him Spot, look at those spots. Luffy had to refocus on the important conversation here, he was losing track of the conversation. I assume you lot are from the Blue Sea, he said. It's impressive you took down Wiper while weakened. Luffy half expected to see Marianne take a swan dive into the clouds. But she didn't. We are 7,000 meters above the Blue Sea, after all. Up here, oxygen is very scarce and people like you all struggle to make it. It's even worse at the White Sea 3,000 meters above us. Luffy inhaled deeply at this, and he was annoyed that his lungs still felt empty. Why could this Wiper guy surf on the waves with no boat or anything? Vivi asked. Was it those skates we took from him? It was, Gonfal said. They're an invention of the people who live up here, but questions can wait. I need to talk business. Gonfal cleared his throat and stood a little straighter. These seas are dangerous for Blue Sea people. Even if you defeated Wiper, he will not be the last. Many of his people roam these seas taking down anyone they see. There will be more. But for 50 million XDOL I could be hired to protect you. What do you say? 50 million say what? Nami asked. XDOL, Gonfal replied. Surely you know of the currency in these lands. 50 million is a fair price. I promise you, much better than you will find elsewhere. We don't have any XDOL, Nijiko said, and if we did, I wouldn't give you 50 million. Wah, how can you not have any XDOL? Gonfal asked with a raised eyebrow. Surely you gathered some from the lower islands on your way up here. Lower islands? Nami asked. Yes, the sky islands below us. You went through them, yes? Gonfal blinked. Surely you didn't ride the stream? It's so dangerous. Luffy cast a wary eye at Nami, who he could tell was close to bursting. He needed to defuse her before he got punched for making her take the stream. We have nothing to worry about, he exclaimed, wrapping an arm around Nami as if to present her to the old man. We have the best navigator in all the seas. Right, Nami? HMPH, of course you do, Nami said, cheeks pink. Good, he'd diffused that ass-kicking. It was a good thing Nami's weakness was stroking her ego. In money, but he already owed all his to her anyway. He didn't need more debt. I got us through that stream no problem. Did you now? Gonfal asked. You're a cut above the usual explorers, I'll tell you that. Here, you can have a free whistle. Call it a prize for being so tenacious. The man dug into his pocket and tossed a whistle at Luffy, who caught it. Looking closer at it, he saw it was just any old whistle. Who cared? Here, Nami, he said, tossing it to her. You earned it. Oh, thanks, Nami said. What is it exactly? A whistle to call me, Gonfal replied. The first is free, but after that I'll charge you. Only fair, don't you agree? Luffy thought the old man was kinda a cheapskate, but he didn't voice this concern. Now, I'd love to stick around, but I have matters to attend. Fare thee well, travelers, I wish you well on your journey. Wait, Nami shouted. How do we get higher? We're kinda stuck here. Gonfal replied. Travel a bit further north than this. There you will find a bouncy cloud that acts as a barrier. You will find a small passage through it, and you will arrive at Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate? Usopp asked. We really are going to die, aren't we? Stop being such a wuss, big bro, Yosaku said, slapping Usopp on the back. We'll be fine. Do be quick though, Gonfal warned. If you're too slow, your prisoner might be noticed by his allies in the area, and you'll be set upon again. Make haste. He does have a point, Nijiko said as Gonfal turned to his bird. So, why the bird? He your friend? Friend and ally, Gonfal said. For Pierre has eaten a horse fruit. As such, he can transform into a flying horse for me to ride into battle. A Pegasus? Chopper asked. I thought they were a myth. Gonfal laughed and gestured to Pierre, who looked full of himself. Feast your eyes on one, he said. Pierre, do your thing. At his word, Pierre cawed and began to morph. His wings turned to legs, and his face began to extend. He looked like a horse all right. The ugliest horse Luffy had ever seen. It took everything he had not to laugh at Pierre's stupid polka dots. Gonfal got on the horrid beast's back, and Pierre took off. Luffy could just barely see the man waving to them as he flew away. The sky is weird, he decided. Coming from you? Nami asked. Yeah, it's weird all right. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, Captain. Now, get your rubber ass in gear so we can go. The crew quickly fell into working order, the Marys slowly heading towards the direction Gonfal had pointed them in. It was slow going, what with the lack of wind-up in the Cloud Sea, but they managed. They also didn't see any of Wiper's presumed allies, which was Alan the bouncy cloud Gonfal described, and as much as Luffy wanted to bounce on it, they had to hurry before someone saw Wiper passed out and tied up. They found the opening relatively quickly and, with a little of Nami's navigating expertise, they got through the twists and turns of it easy enough. Once they rounded the last bend, Luffy looked up and saw something amazing. A gate? He asked. The Heaven's Gate, as it was a literal gate, like to a theme park and everything. It's like we're already dead, Usopp moaned. Or in line at a park, Vivi said. Anyone got the entry fee? We're pirates, Vivi, we don't pay for squat, Nami said. Once a gold hoarder, always a gold hoarder, Zoro said. Nami smacked the back of his head, making him snort. Maybe we'll get a free entry like Gonfal gave us a free whistle? Yosaku asked. That'd be nice. I'm fresh out of cash after Nami swindled me in poker the other day. Nami promptly ignored that. As they approached the odd gate, they saw it was indeed some sort of entry. Luffy watched as an old woman appeared from a doorway on the side of the gate, looking at them. She had a small device in her hands, but Luffy couldn't identify it at this distance. Entry for how many? She asked. Luffy turned and did a head count. 30, he started, but Nami covered his mouth. 12, she said innocently. When she glared at him, Luffy realized he'd counted Wiper among them. That was an accident. He wasn't one of them, so he could pay his own entry fee. That'll be 1 billion extol for each of you, she said. Payment plans are available. Luffy started, we don't have that. Go ahead then, the old woman said, turning to leave. Luffy spared a look at his accountant, but Nami shrugged. If she's letting us go, we go, she hissed, it's not illegal if we got permission. Of course, silly of him to think otherwise. The crew got Mary through the gate and into a small entryway. Before anyone could speak, Mary lurched as she was grabbed by a sea creature digging its claws into her. We're being attacked, Chopper shouted. Not again with the seafood, Zoro muttered, grabbing his blades. That'd be the speedy shrimp. Luffy looked over to see the same woman from before watching them. He takes visitors to the Sky Islands. Just let him take you up. As if on command, the shrimp in question burst forward, swimming rapidly towards a winding pathway of milky white clouds. This place is so cool, he shouted in excitement. Sky Island, here we come. Amazon watched the trespassers go with no expression on her face. She didn't care one way or the other, she just did her job. She raised her radio dial to her mouth and sent her message along. This is Amazon at Heaven's Gate. 12 illegal immigrants are on their way to Angel Beach. Mighty God above and his loyal priests. I have given them the sky's judgment. May their fall from this place be swift and imminent. It didn't take long before the speedy shrimp flew into the air off the Milky Road, flying into the white sea. As Mary touched down in the waves, the shrimp disappeared into the depths, probably on its way to go and ferry someone else here. Whoa, look at that! Luffy shouted in awe as he leaned over the railing. Now at 10,000 feet, he truly felt they had entered Skypia. That was what the sign had called it, anyway. Maybe the locals called it something else. It really does exist, Nami said in awe beside him. A civilization in the sky. Luffy laughed at her awestruck expression as Mary drifted through the clouds. And you doubted me, he said. Nami gave him an unimpressed stare. Doubting you is a healthy reflex, she replied. One I feel I should hone for future islands. Luffy just laughed as Mary got closer to the nearest shore, a beachfront near what looked like a town up the mountain. Alright everyone, we're here, he shouted. Last one on the beach cleans the deck. Luffy did not wait for a proper race to start before leaping from the ship. landing in the snow-white sand as the other man groaned. "That was cheap, big bro Luffy," Johnny shouted as he brandished a finger at him. "You had a head start." "Sorry, can't hear you over the sand," Luffy replied. Turning back to the beach, Luffy quickly saw a tree nearby, with an odd fruit hanging out of it. "Hey, Luffy," Nijiko called. Luffy looked over as the others disembarked, some wearing swimming attire. "Vivi and I are gonna stay on the ship and watch Wiper. We'll shout if anything happens. We'll negotiate if we can." "Alright," he replied as he stretched his arm to grab the odd, cylindrical fruit. "Don't do or say anything to set him off." "We won't," Vivi called. "You can count on us, Luffy." He just laughed at the princess as he caught the fruit from the tree. "I never didn't count on you," he replied, bringing the fruit up to his mouth to take a bite. It clanged like metal and made his teeth vibrate, causing him to drop it in surprise. "What the hell is that thing? Could you not just go around eating random things?" Usopp asked. "What if it's poisonous?" "Well, I'll find out when I open it. That's not what I meant." Wiper didn't know where he was, but he knew he'd been captured. As he slowly came to, he could feel that his entire body was restricted. Try as he might, there was no way to discreetly free himself. He could hear a few people walking near him, but so far no one had said anything he could use to his advantage. How had those blue sea morons captured him? All he remembered was getting splattered by blue paint, and then passing out in a haze. He needed to find his gear, and quickly. Sensing a lull in the sounds nearby, Wiper opened his eyes to look around. He saw no one ahead of him, nor his gear. He had been tied to the mast of their ship and left there. Taking a glance at his surroundings, he noticed that he'd been taken to the White Sea. So they had gone up to Skypia proper, then. He could see town in the distance, but other than that there was no identifying signs to let him know where they'd ended up. This was bad. He was captured by the enemy, lost somewhere he could not recognize right away, and who knew what they were going to do to him. "Ah, you're awake. Good." Wiper jumped and looked up. He had been so wrapped up in his thoughts that he hadn't noticed a woman coming from behind to stand in front of him. The woman in question had her light blue hair combed to the left side of her head, a red bow tied around her head to keep it out of her eyes. She had a swirling tattoo on her arm similar to his, but he could not assign a meaning to it if there was one. Her light blue eyes had zeroed in on him, and he sensed a confidence and leadership quality to them. Yes, the way this woman carried herself led him to believe she was someone of authority. She had ditched any shirt she had been wearing before for a blue and black bikini top, but she still had a pair of shorts held up by a belt that sported weapons. That was a holstered threat if he'd ever seen one. "What do you want from me?" Wiper asked, meeting her eye. The woman shrugged. "Don't know yet," she answered. "Hey, Vivi, he's awake." Seems she was calling one of her allies. Wiper frowned down at the deck, trying to figure out what he was going to do. If he could find a weakness in these knots, he didn't doubt he could defeat whoever Vivi and this person were. But where was the rest of the crew he'd seen before? Where was that paint witch who had stopped him with colors? He didn't see them anywhere. Another person emerged from the cabin of the ship, another woman with blue hair. Hers, though, was bright blue and in a ponytail, a stark contrast to her friend's. As opposed to her friend who was scantily clad, this girl had a long-sleeve white sweater on, and black woolen pants. She hugged herself as she descended the steps towards him, and Wiper noted she must have been cold. This girl had a sense of elegance to her. He felt as though he should have bowed to her, the way she looked at him. "Hi," she greeted as she came to stand in front of him. "I'm Vivi." "What do you want?" he asked again. Vivi smiled softly at him and knelt down to be on eye level with him. "Nothing, for now," she said. "Just want to ask you some questions, if that's okay." "I've got no answers for you, tourist." He spat the last word at her, but Vivi looked unaffected by his venom. "How about we start with your name?" she asked. "I got it from you while you were inebriated. But can you remind me? Why was she being so soft and cordial with him? It was unnerving." "Wiper," he said simply. Vivi's smile widened. "Wiper," she repeated, "it's nice to meet you, was it? Well, I guess you tried to kill us, but it's not the first time I made a friend after that's happened." What kind of stuff did this girl regularly get into? Wiper's eyes darted to the other woman, who was leaning on the railing of the ship with a hand on her holstered weapon. Vivi looked towards the girl as well, seeing what he saw. "Don't mind Najiko," she said. "She's just here to make sure you don't break free and kill me." So the other woman was Najiko. Wiper didn't know what kind of weapon that was, but he sensed that if she had to draw it he was in trouble. "I'll ask again," he said. "What do you want from me?" "Well, Wiper," Vivi said, sitting and crossing her legs in front of him. "I'm sure you can tell we're new to Skypia, as it seems to be called. My first question would be, why do you want to kill us? We just met." "Last thing we need here is more invaders," Wiper snarled. "Besides, you're usually good target practice." "What do you mean by more invaders?" Vivi asked with a raised eyebrow. "You've had others." "Not anything you need to concern yourself with, tourist," Wiper replied. He had no intention of filling this woman in on Skypia's politics. He just wanted to get out of here. But with Najiko watching him like a hawk, he doubted that would happen. "Well, perhaps if you tell me what's going on, we can come to an arrangement," Vivi replied. "After all, we don't have any ill will towards you. If you promised you wouldn't attack us again, I'm sure my captain would happily set you free." "Your captain?" Wiper asked. "So you aren't in charge?" "I don't answer to you, or any of you. But certainly not someone who isn't the leader of this tiny vessel." Vivi, still, looked unaffected by his remarks. "I speak for the captain of this vessel," she said simply. "I am the voice of the Straw Hats. He's entrusted your situation to me, and I intend to solve it. Will you allow me to solve this peacefully, or shall we keep you tied up there?" Wiper noted the hard will her voice carried. She was still being soft with him, but now she was warning him what would happen if he failed to comply. If what she said was true, and she spoke for the captain, then he had little choice but to parley with her. "Fine, ask your question, voice," he replied. "I will answer when I deem it appropriate." That sound said with a bright smile. "First things first, do you attack all tourists?" "When we can," Wiper replied. "Like I said, you make good target practice, and we don't need any more of you." "You say, we," Vivi noted, raising her hand. "What do you mean? Are you a native of this land?" How best to answer that, he wondered. "That's a loaded question," he replied. "Most I will say is yes and no." Vivi raised an eyebrow, but did not pursue an answer. "What are these invaders you spoke of?" she asked. "Has this land been invaded recently?" "I don't intend to drop all my problems on a bunch of blue sea folk," Wiper replied. "It's got nothing to do with you, so leave." Vivi examined him for a moment silently, Wiper matching her gaze. "Want to know what I think, Wiper?" she asked. "Who cares?" he demanded. "I think you're a strong, patriotic man," she said. "A man who has been driven to these ends because of what has happened to your home. You speak of stopping more invaders, but refuse to say what you mean. I ask, you won't tell me. Why? To not involve an innocent? You're compassionate as well, then." "I tried to kill you," Wiper spat. "Only because what has happened to you makes you view all outsiders as the enemy," she replied. "You viewed those pirates before us as enemies, and my crew and I as enemies because of what's happened to you. Why are you analyzing me?" he demanded, struggling against his binds. "Just kill or free me. I had to go." "May I tell you a story, Wiper?" Vivi asked calmly, ignoring his request. "I too had my home invaded before. And my home was infiltrated and my security threatened," Vivi continued. Wiper had to admit, she was good at ignoring his jabs. "So I tried my hardest to solve it all on my own. I did what I thought was necessary. I hurt people, lied to people, all to try and save my home that I loved. But I couldn't do it alone, or I'd have died. Want to know what saved me?" "No, this ship and its crew," she said with a soft smile. "This little ship of light barged into my life and saved me, my home, and everything I love." "So why are you even here?" Wiper asked her. "Why do you not celebrate in your saved homeland?" "Because I came to the realization that my home was not the only home that's been destroyed and invaded," she replied. Wiper was startled by the sudden conviction in her voice. "I refuse to sit idly by while people's lives and homes are destroyed by those who carry ill will in their hearts. I intend to use the freedom this ship provides me to save those that the higher-ups either ignore, oppress, or forget. I tell you this, Wiper, not so you will empathize with me. I tell you because I think we could help you. Now, I will ask again. Has your home been invaded? Is your family at great risk? Do you need allies in this war you wage?" Wiper stared at Vivi long and hard, trying to read her. The courage and determination she displayed was truthfully awe-inspiring. He could tell this woman was not exactly well built or powerful, but her words carried so much weight she could topple nations with them. This girl was dangerous, he realized. Her words were as sharp as a sword and her calm expression and friendly disposition her shield. In only this short conversation, she had swayed him into talking. He could feel his determination to remain silent waning. She had disarmed him by talking friendly and peacefully, only to drive her bladed words into his abdomen once his guard was down. Vivi, he decided, was dangerous in a way he wasn't familiar with. "There's no point in telling you," he said. "It will just get you killed. Flee this place before God strikes you down." "God?" Vivi asked. "Is there a God here? Do you have a death wish?" Wiper demanded. "He's probably listening to us right now." This caused both women to scan their surroundings warily. "You have no need to be here. Leave, before you die. It's that simple." "And what will happen if we do leave?" Vivi asked. "Will you continue to fight this god all by yourself? With your limited allies?" Did she have to say it like that? Deep down, he already knew the chances of victory were slim. If Gonfall could lose to Enel, what hope did he have? "Can I have my say?" Nijiko asked, making both Wiper and Vivi turn to her. Wiper, the man in charge of this crew, had aspirations far beyond this place. "I'm not religious, so I don't really believe this God you speak of is a real one. My home too was freed by this ship, and I have seen firsthand what a tyrannical leader does to those he lords over. I've also seen, time and again, what our captain does to those leaders. Tell us what's happening. Who knows, maybe the solution to your problem just fell into your lap." She gave him a cautionary smile, and when he looked back at Vivi, she too was smiling. "Please," she asked, tilting her head to one side. "Will you let us hear your story, Wiper?" Wiper stared at her quietly, trying to figure out how insane these people truly were. Finally, his shoulders slouched and he hung his head. These people had to be suicidal to ignore his warnings. "If it means you'll free me, fetch your captain," he said. "I'll share with you the story of this place." Wiper was left tied up as Vivi and Nijiko fetched the rest of their crew, and soon Wiper found himself surrounded by the 12 of them. Some of the men looked like they could be trouble if they got used to the lack of oxygen up in Skypia. The women, although obviously less psychically imposing, still unnerved him. Vivi's words still made him feel like she was defeating him verbally, while Nojiko's careful eye made him feel exposed. Nami, as he learned her name was, also had an imposing glare on her. The eldest woman, Robin, looked innocent enough, but he knew that look harbored trouble. The paint witch, Marianne, scared him most of all. He did not want to get hit by it again. What was that strange little horned creature though? A blue sea pet. "So, you ready to talk then? Luffy?" the captain asked him. Wiper met his strangely empty gaze. Luffy's eyes were somewhat vacant, but he sensed purpose behind them, an odd combination. "Yes, your negotiator has warned me done," he replied. He saw Nami wrap an arm supportively around Vivi, who blushed. "Keep an eye on her, her voice could move mountains." "Oh stop, you're embarrassing me," Vivi said with a giggle. This made him apprehensive. He could tell it was another of her techniques. It made her look friendly and approachable. "So, what's the deal, big?" Luffy asked. "What's got you attacking random people as a hobby?" Wiper spent a brief moment catching the crew up on what he had already explained to Vivi and Nijiko. He explained that this place was not friendly to outsiders anymore, and that God could strike them down at any moment if he truly wanted to. This made a few of them look afraid, but they said nothing. Wiper opened his mouth to speak more, but found the words caught in his throat. He didn't know what to say. "Just start at the beginning," he heard Vivi say quietly. He looked up and saw she'd pushed to the front of the group and knelt down again, smiling at him. He was right in saying she was dangerous. "Things were fine here several years ago," he said. "Well, not fine, but better than they are. That's when God appeared. His real name is Enel, but he may as well be a real god. His power is so overwhelming and insane that he toppled the past leadership of Skypia and became our new lord. Ever since, this land has become even more dangerous and hard to live in. Enel is insane, and must be stopped." "What makes him so powerful?" Zoro, the swordsman, asked. "Enel can turn into pure lightning," Wiper replied. "It is not possible to strike him with psychical attacks. It can't be done. He takes no damage. Only the strongest and most absurd powers could ever hope to damage him. An entire army could attack him, and they would lose. He cannot be beaten. Logia fruit user, then, Robin surmised. Wiper didn't know what logia was, but the rest of the crew seemed to understand her. Another logia user of Pressy with a frown, that's an uncomfortably quick repetition. What else can this Enel do? Vivi asked him. Wiper frowned. He also uses a mysterious power called mantra, he said. With it and his electric powers, he can see the entirety of Skypia and hear what people say. He can probably hear us right now, discussing him. This made the crew look uneasy, some looking around. He can use this power to read attack patterns and intentions, making it even more impossible to land a hit on him. He truly is, in every sense, a god. Even if he is just a man. Yes, that was the power Enel had. There was no way to defeat him. He would probably rule over this land for the rest of his life. You said he turns into lightning? Wiper looked up to see the small horned creature had come to the front of the group to look at him. I did, Wiper said. Why? A smile spread on the animal's face as he turned to the captain. Then we have nothing to worry about, he exclaimed. Luffy can't get hurt by him. Wiper didn't know what that meant, but Nami seemed to be the first to understand, her eyes lightening up. Of course, she said, good catch, Chopper, I almost missed that. It's your turn to explain, Wiper said. How is your captain immune? Nejiko answered him by walking to Luffy's side and grabbing his cheek. Wiper watched in astonishment as Nejiko stretched her arm out to its full length, horizontal to the ground, holding Luffy's cheek the whole way. The man's cheek simply stretched with her arm, Luffy barely even seeming to notice. Luffy ate the gum fruit, she told him. His body is made of rubber. Do you have rubber up here? If you don't, here's a little tip. It doesn't conduct electricity. Wiper stared at the man's stretched cheek as Nejiko released him, the skin snapping back to his face and making his head wobble. You ate a fruit like Enel, he said, eyes narrowing. How can I trust you? You may as well be the next tyrant. That sounds like too much work, Luffy replied, waving his hand in denial. I've got no interest in taking other people's freedom away. No? Wiper asked. Why is that? Luffy just stared at him blankly. Because I'm aiming to be the freest man in the blue sea, he replied, as if the answer was obvious. Nothing about taking this place for my own gets me closer to that. Wiper stared at the man's blank eyes, unsure of what to think. Of course he could be lying, but, as he stared at him, Wiper came to feel this was not the case. Luffy did not have the look of a liar. He was far too innocent looking for that. Let's assume that's true, Wiper grumbled, shifting under the ropes. You still can't hit him because of his mantra. You'll just tire out and die eventually. Then I'll just kick his ass faster than I can tire out, Luffy said as if it was that simple. It's not that easy, Wiper stated. Sure it is, just point me in the right direction. Growling, Wiper tried to free himself from the ropes. He was getting so tired of this. Just let me go, he shouted. I don't have time to parley with you idiots. Every second I waste is one I could be using to reclaim what's ours. So something was stolen from you, Robin said, speaking up for the first time. Wiper looked into her blue eyes, watching her calculate her words. He sighed and slumped again. Not something, somewhere, he said, our ancestral home. My people and I used to live on the blue sea, like you. But hundreds of years ago, the sea exploded beneath our home and sent the land flying into the sky. We've lived here ever since, constantly fighting to protect what is ours from these thieving Skypians. They see the dirt, the trees, and the environment of the blue sea and try to take it. We've been fighting for centuries over it. Then Enel took it for himself. Now, please, release me. How many hundreds? Robin asked. Wiper raised an eyebrow at her. 4, I think, he said. Robin's eyes widened as she took a step forward and knelt down to look at him. Do you know the name Mont Blanc Noland? She asked. Wiper's eyes widened at the legendary explorer's name. Of course I know him, he exclaimed. A legendary explorer who saved my people from a plague with his cures and medicines. He was a friend of my ancestor, Calgara. Robin studied him carefully, her eyes full of questions. So the city of Gold Noland wrote about, she said, it exists? Yes, of course, in the forests of Shandora. Noland saw it with his own eyes, this I know. So Cricket was right, then? Usopp, the long-nosed one, asked. The city did exist? Seems it did, Nami said. Only it didn't sink. The knock-up stream sent it flying into the sky. We'll have to tell him about this. Who is this cricket you speak of? Wiper asked. Another friend of yours. Luffy smiled down at him. He's actually descended from Noland, he said. Wiper's eyes widened. He helped us get up here, actually. He's down below on Jaya, searching for the city of gold Noland spoke of. Noland's family? Wiper asked in disbelief. His bloodline still runs strong to this day? Yep. Luffy said, he's a cool guy, once you get past his crotchety attitude. Wiper could hardly believe it. After all this time, all this hardship, he learns of Cricket's descendant looking for them. After everything, his family still remembered their bonds to his? What happened to Noland? Wiper asked, looking back at Robin. Was he a legendary hero, like Calgara was? Robin frowned. He died disgraced and an outcast, she said, because when he brought people back to see the city of gold, Shandora had already been blasted into the sky. People assumed him a liar and a charlatan, and had him executed. Wiper stared at her in disbelief. All this time, he and his people believed Noland probably forgot about them. But to hear he had not, and tried to return, that was a hard pill to swallow. But to hear the man he had spent his childhood wondering about had been executed left a foul taste in his mouth. The stories say my ancestor Calgara fought until his dying breath to protect Shandora, he said quietly, so that one day, he could ring the golden bell and tell Noland we were still alive, still here. Silence fell over everyone after he spoke, giving Wiper time to gather his thoughts. Assuming these people were not lying to him, this changed things. They were allies of the Mont Blanc family, that meant they were allies with the Shandia. Assuming it was true, naturally. He looked up towards Vivi, who met his gaze. Do I have your word, voice, he said, that none of what your crew has told me is lies? That all of that was the truth? If any of it turns out to be a lie, you may take my life, Vivi replied stoically. The others looked at her in shock, but the woman did not back down from him. Wiper kept her gaze a little longer before he sighed. Then you all and I are not enemies, he said. Could you please undo these bindings, now? The crew looked apprehensive, but after a look from Luffy, Usopp walked forward and worked at untying the knots. The pressure of the ropes lessened around his body, allowing him to breathe more easily. Soon, the ropes fell to the deck, freeing him. Wiper stood to his full height, towering over many of the crew members. Thank you, he muttered to Usopp, who fled back into the crowd. That must mean you don't want to kill us now, huh? Luffy asked with his arms crossed. Wiper shook his head. No, he said. You ferried priceless information to me about Noland and his family. In return, allow me to grant you my own priceless knowledge. Flee this place and do not return. Enel is not a man to be trifled with. Yet you trifle with him, Sanji noted, smoking a cigarette. Because he has taken my ancestral homeland, Wiper replied. But you Blue Sea folk, you have no dog in this fight. Leave, before Enel tries to kill you all. Luffy made a face at this. No can do, Wiper, he said. Why not? He demanded, Luffy blinking at him blankly. If that city of gold exists, he replied, I want to tell Cricket. I want to ring that bell and show him. Wiper stared at L.A. Screw Loose. He cast a glance over the rest of the crew, but none looked too surprised by this. Some even seemed to agree. Were these people just not listening to him, or what? Luffy, Nami started, leaning on Luffy's shoulder to stare at him in annoyance. Finally, someone with some sense. We're 10,000 feet in the air. Do you really think Cricket will hear the bell? Good point, Luffy said to her before looking back at Wiper. How loud is the bell, do you think? I don't know, Wiper admitted. Loud? Sounds good enough to me, Luffy replied. Alright gang, get ready to set out. We're headed to… Luffy turned back to him. Where is it? A place called Upper Yard, he admitted. But listen, this is a bad idea. We can't just walk up and… Upper Yard, Luffy repeated. Pack what you need and we'll set out. The crew gave a collection noise as a response, before setting out to gather whatever they needed. Wiper was left dumbfounded by all of them. Were Blue Sea people sick in the head or something? You get used to it, Vivi said, still standing with him. He turned to look at her, still stunned. What? He asked, the lack of self-preservation. Well, yes, Vivi admitted with a laugh. She turned to watch the crew work, her hands behind her back. But I meant the selfless and irrational desire to help other people, even when their lives are at risk. Wiper was reminded of the story she told, that this crew had saved her as well. Maybe he could risk putting his faith in them, at least for now. It was brave of you to offer your life as penance if your crew lied to me, he said. You're a brave woman. Vivi just looked at him with a smirk. I don't think it was brave, she said, because we didn't lie to you once, so my life isn't in any danger. Preparing to leave didn't get very far before Wiper was cornered again and given his things. That wasn't a problem, but what was a problem was that he was being asked to explain his things to them. What, you've never seen dials before? He asked Usopp, showing him the shell. Usopp shook his head. We don't have those down in the Blue Sea, he replied. What's it do? Well, there's a few types of dial, Wiper said, but this one is an impact dial. What's it do? Here, punch it. Usopp raised an eyebrow, but raised his fist and slammed it into the dial. Wiper could tell it had not been a hard punch, which was good. He leaned forward and pressed the dial to Usopp's shoulder and clicked it. The small amount of force generated pushed him back a bit, making his eyes widen. What was that? He asked. Impact dials absorb kinetic force, Wiper explained as the crew gathered around him. So I had you punch it, absorb the force, and threw it back at you. It works much better if your opponent is very strong, obviously. What about these? Nami asked, lifting up his shooter skates. Shooters, he explained as he grabbed them from her. It uses breath dials to shoot you forward. It's how I skated to you earlier to attack. You can walk on the clouds with these. What about this? Johnny asked, holding his launcher in his hands. My launcher, he replied as he took it from the man and shifted it to show the back. See here, I can interchange dials and change how it works. It can breath fire, shoot cannonballs faster, the works. Whoa, you got some cool stuff, Wiper, Yosaku said, eyes wide as he watched the shooters. Usopp sure could use some of this stuff. Could you? Wiper asked, turning back to the other man. Usopp sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. I'm something of a weaponsmith, Usopp replied. I've upgraded a lot of the crew's weapons on our trip so far. Interesting, Wiper replied. If you're good, I can show you more dials when we get back to my village. It will help if you really plan to battle Enel. Village? Robin asked. How strong are your numbers? Wiper grimaced at this. Not high, he replied. Our fighting force is less than a dozen strong. But we'll still take back Upper Yard, even if it kills us. Less than 12 people and he's against getting help. Luffy teased, punching Wiper's shoulder several times to joke with him. You definitely needed the help, huh? Wiper just stared back at him in annoyance. Vivi cleared her throat to ease the tension. How about you show us to your village, Wiper? She asked. We can plan our next move there. Wiper sighed and nodded. Sounds fine to me, he said. Let's go, I'll lead us to Blue Sea illegals. A voice boomed, making them all jump and turn. Down on the beach was a platoon of white berets. You're trespassing in Skypia and that is a Class 11 offense. The leader of this vessel, make yourself known. Hi. Luffy waved down to them. What seems to be the problem, officer? The problem is you entered Skypia without paying your immigration fees, the leader of the berets said. Making you illegals, come down here and pay your fine, and all will be forgiven. What's the fine? Luffy asked. Seeing as there is 12 of you, the fine would amount to 112 billion XTOL. What's the exchange rate with berries? Nami called. In berries, it would be 12 million. Wiper noted that Johnny and Yosaku both grabbed one of Nami's arms to prevent her from flying off the ship and assaulting the officers. Please hand over the money, or else we will have to arrest you and take you in. I have a better idea, Luffy called. Without waiting for a response, he leapt from the railing down towards the officers. Zoro and Sanji close behind. Wiper watched as the men fought, fascinated by their styles. Zoro's sword work was fascinating to watch. He dodged and moved around to slice the officers' arrows in two like it was no big deal. Sanji dodged with even fancier footwork, quickly closing the distance and kicking the officers in the head. Luffy had taken the commander of the unit, grabbing a nearby tree with his stretched arm and flying right at the man. Wiper watched in shock as Luffy grabbed a hold of the man and used his stretched arm to wrap them both around the tree like a rope, gaining speed as they went. After about 10 rotations, Luffy let go of the captain of the squad, and he was sent flying dozens of feet into the air before sailing back down, landing hard on his face and not moving. "Good job, guys," Nami called. "Take their wallets while you're at it." Wiper felt no sympathy for Skypian guards, but he had to admit he did feel a little bad watching the men rummage through the officers' pockets looking for money. "You're impressive for Blue Sea travelers," Wiper called. "You've adapted well to the lack of oxygen." "Yeah, it's no big deal," Zoro replied. "These guys weren't tough, anyway. I don't need a full breath to beat them." "Well, you'll definitely need a full breath to defeat Enel and his priests," he replied. "Let's go to my village. I'll show you the way." "Oh, can you show us the city of gold too?" Nami asked, sliding up to him. "Keep an eye on her, Wiper, or she'll swipe your ancestral homeland," Zoro said. "I would not," Nami said, but Wiper got the feeling she was lying. "I have no attachment to the gold of the city," Wiper replied. "You can take as much as you can carry, I suppose." He could practically see the X-Stole symbols light up in Nami's eyes. "Let's go blast God off his mountain," she shouted. "I need my gold, oh, and to get your people your home back, Wiper. That too." "Okay. Hey Usopp. Check these out." Luffy waved the arrows around as Usopp walked over to him on the beach, taking them from him. "Huh," he said, "these look like regular arrows, but the heads are thick and white. I wonder what would happen if I—" Usopp was interrupted as he slammed the arrow into the sand, and white clouds exploded out of the head. "Oh, awesome, cloud arrows. Good find, Luffy. I can use these." "That's what I figured," Luffy replied. They were in the middle of robbing the white berets of their goods at Nami's request, so of course he'd found the arrows. He looked up at the Mary's deck, where Wiper watched them from. "How do we got to God's house, Wiper?" "We're not rushing in head first, you moron," Wiper called irritably. "We're going to my village first. Get up here so we can go." "Where's your village?" he asked as he stretched his arms to the railing and pulled himself up, landing next to the massive man. "South," Wiper replied, "away from Upper Yard, where Enel's mantra does not reach." "What is mantra?" Vivi asked him curiously. "You said it was a power that lets him see us." "That's exactly what it is," he told her. "Enel has spread his mantra across all of Skypia. He sees all in Upper Yard and beyond. Thankfully, our village seems to be out of his range." After the rest of the crew had boarded the ship, arms full of the white beret's goods, the Going Merry was turned around and started heading southwest, back towards the clouds that surrounded the islands. The going was slow, but the crew found ways to pass the time as they sailed. "Why do you have wings, Wiper?" Chopper asked. Luffy turned to see that yes, Wiper did indeed have wings on his back. They looked tiny and useless, and honestly a bit ridiculous on his massive frame. "Why do you have horns?" Wiper asked back. "Evolution, I suppose. My people have wings on our backs. Why, I do not know." "Can you fly?" Luffy asked. "No, have you tried?" "No," Luffy grinned at the massive warrior. "Wanna try?" he asked, excitement building up. Wiper just looked annoyed with him. "No," he said once again, walking away from Luffy to lean on the railing and stare ahead. Luffy considered bothering him some more, but the man already seemed annoyed enough. Instead, Luffy opted to harass someone reliable. "Hey Nami, let me see that whistle," he said, latching onto the redhead as she passed him. He reached for the whistle around her neck, but she shoved his head out of the way. "No way, you'll blow this thing too early," she replied, "back off." "But Gonfall said we had a freebie," Luffy moaned, trying to grab it again. "Yes, exactly, I don't want you wasting it on nothing." Luffy was so distracted by Nami he didn't notice Wiper rejoining them. "Did you say Gonfall?" he asked, startling the pair of them. "Oh, yeah, he did," Nami said. "He's that old guy with the spotted bird. You know him?" "Do I know him?" Wiper asked, voice unsteady. "That useless prick is the former god of Skypia." Silence fell over the crew as Wiper said this, everyone watching him in surprise. "That weird old man was God?" Yosaku asked. "I don't buy it." "Yeah, he didn't strike me as particularly holy," Nijiko agreed, "or pious." "Gonfall was God when Enel came," Wiper replied angrily, "and did about as much to stop him as anyone else. Can't really say I blame him, but if you can't protect your people, You aren't a leader worth anything." Luffy watched the man quietly, wondering how it was that Gonfall had gone from god to swindling mercenary. If he's just offering his services to Blue Sea explorers, he truly has fallen farther than I thought. "If Enel is as invincible as you claim," Sanji said, "I can't exactly blame him." The Mary continued chugging along towards the clouds barrier near the edge of the White Sea, and Luffy still had no idea where the village was supposed to be. He still couldn't see anything of note, and they were getting closer by the second. Maybe it was hidden in the clouds, that made sense. Before Luffy could voice his question, he surged forward and fell onto his face as Mary came to a blistering halt out of nowhere, sending more than just him into the deck. "What the hell just happened?" Marianne asked. "Did we hit something?" "Hit what?" Johnny asked. "We're in the clouds." Before anyone could ask, Mary groaned as she was hoisted out of the water, large crustacean claws gripping her as they were lifted into the air. "It's another one of those shrimps," Nijiko called from her position at the railing. "It's caught us for some reason." "This normal, Wiper?" Luffy asked the warrior, who grimaced. "No, this isn't for the village," he replied. "It's a speedy shrimp in service to Enel. It's going to take us to Upper Yard if we don't kill it." Wiper ran to where his bazooka was laying, grabbing it and turning around. "Swordsman, I'll need your help. We need to free the ship and slice this thing to pieces." "How do we do that without falling into the clouds?" Zoro asked as Mary groaned again, the shrimp beginning to speed away from the cloud barrier and towards Upper Yard. "It's beneath us." "I'll handle it," Wiper said, slipping his feet quickly into his shooter skates. "Once it lets the ship go, hack it to pieces or we'll all get sent to God in more than one way." Without another word, Wiper activated his shooters and launched off of Mary into the clouds. Luffy ran to the railing and watched as Wiper glided across the clouds and sped ahead of them, before turning and raising his bazooka to aim it at the shrimp. An explosion rang out, and Luffy saw a cannonball fly for the shrimp and strike it in the head. The massive creature cried in anger, making everyone cover their ears before they were deafened. Wiper did not stop at one shot, pelting the shrimp with more than one blast as he skated around it. Before long the shrimp must have had enough, because it lowered itself back into the ocean, roughly dropping them back into the clouds. "Where'd it go?" Sanji asked, looking around. "It's underneath the surface still," Usopp called from the upper deck. "Keep your eyes open." As if one cue, the Mary surged to the side as the shrimp struck her, the wood of the caravel groaning in a bad way. "It's gonna sink us." "No way in hell can we let that happen," Zoro shouted. "Johnny, Yosaku, to me." The two men joined their teacher at the side of the ship the shrimp hadn't struck, waiting. Soon enough, Luffy saw the clouds being shoved out of the way as the shrimp sped towards them. "Zoro now," he shouted, but the first mate did not need to be told. He jumped into the air and positioned himself over the shrimp as it sped towards them, his grip on his blades tightening. 108-pound Phoenix. The air was sliced by Zoro, and the projectiles flew towards the shrimp and struck it just before it hit Mary. The ship was saved by this pass as the shrimp flung itself up to the surface angrily, launching its claws towards Zoro as he fell towards it. Luffy was faster though, stretching his arm and pulling his first mate back before he could be struck. As Zoro fell back, Johnny and Yosaku flew towards the outstretched claws. Sword of the Sea. Cascading Slash. Sword of the Earth. Boulder Drop. Johnny swung his sword vertically and Yosaku diagonally, and together the two men cleanly sliced off the pincers of the shrimp's claws, the severed meat falling back into the ocean. The shrimp let out another angry roar, but Wiper interrupted it by racing right to its mouth, and shoving his bazooka into the open orifice. Burn bazooka. Wiper cocked the handle and a flame dial clicked into the launcher. Without wasting another second he launched a torrent of flames straight into the soft inside of the crustacean. It flung its arms around violently as it screamed in anguish, the flames roasting its insides. After a while, the shrimp's flailing stopped. Its arms dropped back into the water and floated listlessly, the light leaving its eyes. As Luffy dragged back Johnny and Yosaku, the shrimp turned over in the water and exposed Itotid, showing that it was indeed dead. "Damn, that thing is huge," Usopp remarked as he stared down at the shrimp's stomach. "Look at it." "Looks damn tasty," Sanji said. "Johnny, Yosaku, help me carve it up. We'll give it as a peace offering to Wiper's people." "Right behind you, big bro," Johnny called, both of them calling in line behind the cook. As they jumped onto its underside to carve it up, Wiper kicked off of the clouds and landed back on the deck, kicking off the skates. "I was right when I said you all are strong," he said. "You'll make good allies." Luffy grinned at this, putting his hands behind his head. "We're a strong bunch," he said. "Enel will find that out when we come to ring that bell." Far away from the events in the White Sea, in a place called God's Shrine in the upper yard, sat a man. This man was lazing around on a cushion, wearing no shirt and baggy pants. A blue sash was wrapped around his waist, and gold ringlets were wrapped around his wrists. As he raised his head in slight annoyance, his stretched earlobes shifted around his face. "Huh," he said, disinterested, "looks like the shrimp was killed. These people should not be underestimated." He rested his head on his hand, yawning. "No matter. If they step foot in upper yard, I'll set the priests on them. And if that doesn't work, what are they gonna do? Defeat me?" Enel laughed heartily at this. As if. No one can defeat a god. Not even with an immunity. After slicing up a decent amount of the speedy shrimp and transporting it to the kitchen of the Mary, the crew set about storing it. Once they had it safely stored, Luffy put Yosaku up to the task of carrying it with them to Wiper's village as a sign of a goodwill. As they did this, the Mary sailed back towards the cloud barrier, but every time she moaned he became alarmed. None of the sounds Mary was making sounded good, and he hoped she could survive a little longer. He had to imagine that being flung up into the sky so shortly after the damage Hina had done at Alabasta, then getting grabbed and rammed by the shrimp wasn't good. They needed a shipwright more and more by the second. Mary soon shifted so she was parallel with the clouds, and Wiper directed them further west, claiming they were almost there. Luffy still didn't see anything, but he had no reason to doubt the warrior. "Here," Wiper said finally, "stop here." The crew obliged him and went about furling the sails and tossing down the anchor, Mary coming to a stop outside a completely normal-looking cloud. "I don't really see anything," Johnny said, inspecting the clouds near them. "That's the idea," Wiper replied as everyone gathered around him. "Follow me." With this, he leapt into the clouds and disappeared. They all sat there quietly for a moment, no one daring to follow him yet. "Well, I doubt he's tried to kill himself just to fling us back to the blue sea," Robin said cheerfully, walking to the railing and jumping. She disappeared into the clouds as well, and a few seconds later stuck her head back out. "Come on, there's a path here." Grateful that someone else had tried it, the crew joined her and jumped in one by one, Yosaku tossing the crate of shrimp in first before jumping after it. Once they were inside, Luffy saw that they were in a small tunnel of clouds that funneled downwards, Wiper waiting a little further away. "Come on," he said, "it's this way." The crew set out after him, walking through the solid cloud tunnel. The tunnel twisted and turned a few times, but eventually an opening came into view ahead of them and they arrived at it, Luffy's eyes widening. "This is so cool," he said in awe, staring out at the village. The village itself was hidden in between cloud layers, sandwiched in between the top layer above and the bottom layer below. In between the layers sat a thriving community of homes, seemingly made of tents with elaborate linings on them. Wiper walked down the steps from the opening, the crew following him silently as they marveled at what they saw. "A village in the clouds," Robin said, "it's beautiful." "This is nothing," Wiper muttered, clenching his fists. "Our ancestral home is 1,000 times more beautiful. And I'll give my life to get it back. Come on, let's go to the chief. We have a lot to discuss." Wiper walked off ahead of them, leaving them no choice but to follow. Luffy noticed very quickly that they were definitely an outlier here. Had it not been for Wiper's presence, he felt as though the people they passed would have attacked with the way they watched, with a mixture of confusion and caution. All the people in the village were similar to Wiper, having the same dark skin tone and small wings on their backs. Many sported tattoos as well, all kinds of designs surrounding them. "Wiper," someone called, making their guide stop. A man walked up to them, similar in height and build to Wiper. His hair was the opposite of Wiper's, in a mohawk and not a long braid. His eyes were covered by a pair of red glasses, and he wore a pink fur vest over his chest, and a skirt like Wiper's around his waist. "Kamakiri," Wiper said, giving them his name informally. "What?" "What?" Kamakiri mocked. "What do you mean, what? What are you doing bringing outsiders here?" They're allies of the Mont Blanc family, Wiper replied. This caused a ripple of whispers and confusion to pass over the group. Everyone staring even harder at them. They pledged their help to taking down Enel. And you trust them? Kamakiri demanded. Wiper turned his head and looked at Vivi, who matched his gaze without issue. Yes, Wiper replied, we have an arrangement. Kamakiri did not look like he trusted them at all, but he clearly deferred to Wiper's judgment when his shoulders slumped a bit and he stood down. I hope you know what you're doing, he said. Me too, Wiper replied, continuing his march. Kamakiri walked alongside him now, making their way to the biggest tent in the village. The designs on the sides were more elaborate as well, perhaps signaling a person of standing in the community. Standing outside of it was an elderly man in a blue and orange striped robe. In his hand he held a staff with a tribal mask atop it, and on his own head wore what looked like a wolf mask. Luffy thought it made him look a little goofy, but he decided against saying so. Wiper, the man said as they came to a stop. I hope you have a good reason for showing these explorers our secret village. As do I, Wiper said. As I explained to Kamakiri, these explorers are allied with the Mont Blanc family. They gave me important information pertaining Noland and his fate, and as such I trusted them enough to bring them here. Oh, the chief asked, and what information was that? Wiper's fists clenched again, grinding his teeth. Noland was executed for being a liar, he said, because our home was catapulted into the sky by the time he tried to return. He died swearing up and down we did exist. The chief's expression fell dark at this, Kamakiri rubbing the back of his head and cursing. I see, the chief finally said. I thank you, travelers, you allowing us to finally know the fate of a revered ally. But surely you of all people, Wiper, did not bring them here just for that. Wiper's jaw clenched now, and Luffy noted he looked somewhat nervous. They've angered Enel by entering illegally, he said. They've told me their captain can defeat him. The chief's eyes widened, and the crowd that had followed them started to murmur again. Bunch of gossips, Zoro muttered under his breath. And how is that possible? The chief demanded. Enel is invulnerable, he cannot be defeated by regular means. This man is anything but regular, Wiper replied. Luffy, show them. Taking this as his cue, Luffy took a step forward and raised a hand. Hey, he greeted, I'm Luffy. I'm made of rubber. See? He stretched his arm out to shake the chiefs from where he stood, the man staring down at it in shock before returning the gesture. Apparently Enel can't hurt me. Rubber doesn't conduct elected from the group. Enel's lightning can't hurt Luffy. You've eaten the devil's fruit then, boy? The chief asked, Luffy nodding. I see. This is certainly an interesting development. But why would you go out of your way to help us? Help you? Luffy asked. It's not really about you. It's about Cricket. He's Noland's great something grandson. Guy's life was ruined because of Noland, so he's been looking for the City of Gold. I intend to ring the bell and show him it does exist. But I suppose it does help you guys too. The chief looked surprised by his admission. You would risk your life for a friend? He asked, over something so inconsequential? Why wouldn't I? Luffy asked, confused. This wasn't really any different from saving Nami's village, or freeing Alabasta for Vivi to him. He could help Cricket realize his dream, so he would do so. If I have to kick Enel's ass to find the bell, I will. The chief was silent for a moment, seemingly at a loss. Eventually he sighed, rubbing his forehead. I don't know what to make of all this, he said. I don't know if we can defeat Enel with your presence, but, if there's a chance. We have to take it, Chief, Wiper said as he strode forward. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. A living counter to Enel's power has come to us. Our ancestors are surely watching over us. I don't want to move prematurely, Wiper, the chief replied curtly. We move without being prepared and Enel slaughters all of us. Counter or no, we can't let that happen. We can't wait, Wiper shouted angrily. Enel sees everything, so he knows this man is here. It'll only be a matter of time before he learns of his immunity, and by then we're screwed. We must strike while the iron is hot and take him out. I won't authorize a suicide mission into Upper Yard purely because of one man, the chief yelled back at him. We must wait for the right opportunity. We've spent 400 years waiting, Wiper roared, his voice making some of the villagers cower. We've spent 4 centuries fighting to take back what is ours. Calgara died for what's ours. We have the right opportunity, and we must take it. Wiper. The chief's voice silenced everyone, even Wiper. The man glared at the warrior for a few excruciating seconds before opening his mouth again. We cannot be hasty. We will reclaim what is ours. I promise you. But nothing comes to those who cannot wait. The chief said nothing more and walked back into his tent, the flaps closing behind him and ending the conversation. Luffy looked over to Wiper, seeing the warrior was just barely holding in his rage. After a few seconds he turned and left in a huff, his mere presence cutting a path through the onlookers as he stormed away. So did that go well, or not? Nijiko asked curiously. Kamakiri laughed. Wiper's got a bad temper, he explained as he turned to Luffy. Especially when he's not allowed to go storm Upper Yard whenever he pleases. Don't worry, I'm sure they'll come to an arrangement eventually. Sure, whatever, Luffy said. By the way, you guys got a kitchen anywhere? We killed one of those huge shrimp on our way here and brought some meat with us. Yosaku hoisted up the crate a little at this. Kamakiri looked at him. Did you now? He asked, smiling. Then I think this calls for a feast? What do you say, everyone? The village roared in support of the feast, and soon the crate was taken off Yosaku's hands by a group of women, who promised they could cook it. Sanji followed after them, saying he wanted to learn how to cook sky food. Luffy figured it was because the women were scantily clad. You guys hungry? Kamakiri asked. Luffy smiled. Always, he replied. Luffy didn't realize how late it already was as they partied with the Shandia, darkness encroaching on the village quickly. They gathered around a massive bonfire where they were burning what looked like wood, but was apparently a wood substitute that the Skypians used. The crate of shrimp was used to great effect, the meat being cooked over the fire by the women from before as Sanji watched with interest. The Shandia also served a drink that they claimed was not alcoholic, but Luffy could tell his senses had been dulled by it. Although maybe that was the lack of oxygen, he still wasn't really sure. Taking a massive bite out of his shrimp, Luffy looked around them. Wiper isn't hungry, huh? He asked. Kamakiri looked back at him and shrugged as he stoked the fire. He's still pouting, probably, he replied. Give him time and he'll show up. This whole Upper Yard deal means a lot to him, huh? Usopp asked from Luffy's side. Kamakiri nodded, his mouth twisting into a frown. I'm sure he mentioned it, but Wiper is descended from Calgara, he replied. Calgara was the greatest Shandian who ever lived. He died protecting our ancient homeland, wanting desperately to ring the bell once more and tell Noland we were here. He'll never outright admit to it, but Wiper feels a lot of pressure from that legacy. He thinks it's up to him to restore us to glory. If he'd look around for more than a few seconds, he'd realize we're too weak to do that. Sometimes I wonder if we should even bother fighting anymore. Luffy hadn't wanted to mention it, but Kamakiri was right. He hadn't seen many people who looked able to fight, especially against such overwhelming odds as Enel seemed to be. Wiper's aforementioned fighting force of a dozen or less was certainly not enough. He turned his gaze to the women of his crew, who were seated together and laughing. Nami and Nijiko were sat close to one another, telling a story that made Vivi laugh and Robin smile. Marianne sat on the ground a bit further away, smiling weakly as she sipped her drink. Next to them, Yosaku was showing how strong he was by lifting up half a dozen of the village's children and running around with them, much to their delight. Johnny was showing off his ability to dodge blows to some of the men, Chopper watching in shock and Zoro in pride. Sanji was busy flirting with the cooks from earlier, who looked immensely flattered by his attention. This made him assess the villagers, who all looked happy and well-fed despite their circumstances. You ask me, he said suddenly, you guys got something worth fighting for right here. Kamakiri looked over at him in surprise before he looked over his people as well, smiling. Yeah, he said, that's why we resist in the first place. It's for them we're a family, you know? I do, Luffy agreed with a burp, downing the rest of his shrimp. Alright, where do y'all think Wiper is? I want to talk to him. Probably at his tent down that way, Kamakiri replied, pointing to the eastern edge of the village. If not, check the statue of Calgara nearby. It's one of the other. Luffy nodded then turned to Usopp. Save some shrimp for me, he said, walking off in the aforementioned direction. Saving food for you is like preparing for the apocalypse, Usopp muttered, making him laugh as he walked off. Soon the sounds of the party faded into the background as he went deeper into the camp, searching for the warrior. There wasn't much light available over where he was, but he could see well enough to get around the tents and items owned by the villagers. Turning a corner, Luffy continued to check tents, but did not see Wiper anywhere. Figuring he must have been at the statue, he turned in its direction and headed towards it, Calgara's stone head peeking out from above the tents. Once he got to it, he saw the man he was looking for, standing in front of it and staring up at his great whatever grandfather. "Hey," Luffy greeted with his hand raised. "What are you doing over here, big man?" Wiper turned to acknowledge him, but then returned his gaze to the statue. "I'm in no mood to party," Wiper replied gruffly, arms crossed. Luffy stood next to him and looked up at the statue, crossing his arms as well. "This guy your ancestor?" he asked, Wiper nodding. "I don't see the resemblance." No, I mean, he has a ton of hair, and you only have that one braid." Wiper did not reply to press the issue. "You really want to kill this Enel guy, huh?" "Of course," Wiper said. "It's my dream to return my people to their ancient home and restore us to glory." "Dream, huh?" Luffy asked, turning to look at Wiper. The warrior's eyes seemed focused but distant, as if he was looking not at Calgara, but past him at something else. Something only he could see. He knew that look because he felt he often wore it himself. "Why don't we take him down, then?" Wiper turned to look at him, looking surprised. "The chief forbade it," he said. "So?" Luffy asked, shrugging his shoulders. "He ain't no chief of mine. I'm the leader, not the follower. So my crew and I will head out." "Not without me you won't," Wiper growled. "It's me who will take Enel's head, not you." "I doubt the chief will have much say in the matter if we leave at the dead of night," Luffy said. "Even that Enel guy should sleep, right? It'll be perfect." "A mission in the dead of night, huh?" Wiper asked, raising a hand to his chin. "That'd work, but Upper Yard isn't just dangerous because of Enel and his priests. It's home to volatile wildlife as well. We'd have to be extra careful in the dark." "That's fine," Luffy said with a wave of his hand. "We can handle wolves or whatever." Wiper seemed to be thinking it over, but soon his eyes drifted past Luffy to something behind him. He then frowned. "Isa!" he shouted, storming past Luffy. Luffy turned to see Wiper approaching a child of the village who looked startled as the warrior came up to her, snatching a little bag from her hands. "Give that back, Wiper," she cried, reaching for the bag. "It's mine." "How many times must we tell you?" Wiper demanded. "Stop sneaking into Upper Yard. Enel could kill you. It's not worth it over a little bit of Verth." "Enel can't catch me," the child proclaimed proudly. "I can see him all the time. He never cares when I take it." "What's Verth?" Luffy asked as he joined them. Wiper turned and tossed him the bag, and Luffy looked inside to see a pile of regular old dirt. "It's dirt from the Blue Sea," Wiper explained as Isa watched him warily. Luffy vaguely remembered seeing her riding Yosaku's shoulders earlier. "It's valuable to Skypians because it can grow things, whereas clouds cannot." "Huh," Luffy said, throwing the pouch back to him. "That doesn't seem worth the effort." "Which is what we keep telling you," Wiper said, throwing an accusatory finger in Isa's face. "Stop risking your life over this. I won't be the one to tell your mother you got vaporized over a handful of Verth." "It's ours anyway," Isa protested angrily. She sure had a mouth on her. "Enel has no claim to it, neither do the Skypians. I should be able to take as much as I want." "That's not how things work anymore, Isa," Wiper growled. "Now go on, store your Verth like you wanted. Then go back to the party." Isa looked annoyed at being told what to do, but she snatched her little pouch back and took off for a nearby tent, where she'd been trying to sneak earlier. Luffy then turned to Wiper. "Would Enel really vaporize a kid over a handful of dirt?" he asked. Wiper grimaced, but nodded. "He would," he replied. Luffy digested this information quietly, sighing to himself and punching his open palm. "Well, I guess we gotta take him down quickly then," he said. "I get the sense that kid won't listen to your warning." Wiper frowned. "Probably not," he said. "Listen, after the party ends, gather your people and meet me at my tent. I'll have gathered my squad. We'll formulate a plan, and invade Upper Yard in the early morning." Luffy nodded at this, turning to walk back to the party. "Don't worry, Wiper," he said, "we'll take down Enel just in time to ring that bell for lunchtime. We'll tell Cricket, and everybody else, that you're here." Wiper actually snorted at Luffy's comment, which made him smile. "I'll hold you to that," Captain Luffy, he said before walking off in the opposite direction. The party with the Shandians lasted deep into the night, lasting as long as it took for the bonfire to die down. Luffy had already gathered his crew and informed them what was happening, telling them to not party too hard. They had work that needed doing later. Once the party started to die down, Luffy and the others left the bonfire behind and walked in the direction of Wiper's tent. Their party attitude had long since faded, all of them in varying degrees of business mode. "Are we really going to do this in the middle of the night?" Nami asked. "Shouldn't we wait for the chief to make a decision?" "If Wiper can get the warriors to side with him, does it matter?" Luffy asked her, raising an eyebrow. The redhead frowned but shook her head. "No, I guess not," she said. "I just hope this is an actual plan and not whatever you usually come up with." "What's that supposed to mean? You know very well what I mean." "Alright, stop arguing," Nijiko said as she lightly smacked Luffy on the back. "We're supposed to look calm and collected, not a mess." Luffy knew she was right. Even though they weren't exactly the least chaotic crew in the world, they could try and behave for 5 minutes. After walking through the village for a few minutes, Luffy spotted their destination. It wasn't difficult to find Wiper's tent, as the flap was open with the man gathered around with his team. "Luffy," Kamakiri called from the door, "over here." When the crew reached the tent, Luffy noted that it was too small to hold Wiper's allies and his entire crew, so he elected to bring Zoro and Vivi inside with him while everyone else waited outside, peeking in. "So, what's the plan?" Luffy asked as he stood opposite the warriors' table with a map of Upper Yard displayed on it. "It's not much of a plan," Wiper replied. "Like I told you, we invade Upper Yard while Enel and the priest sleep so we can get in further than if it was morning. After that, we need to make it where they sleep. With any luck, they don't wake up early." "How far can we take Mary?" Vivi asked, her arms crossed as she scanned the map. "We could technically sail into Upper Yard itself," the woman next to Wiper said. "But it wouldn't be stealthy or convenient. We're better off leaving your ship in the bay and going on foot. Not to mention the waterways are patrolled by more of Enel's speedy shrimp," Wiper said. "Your ship would get torn to pieces before we made it to the city." Luffy frowned when he heard this. It was definitely a better idea to leave Mary behind. "You mentioned the city," Zoro said. "Is that our destination?" "It is," Wiper confirmed, pointing to the ancient city on the map. "Enel's residence is above the ancient city, in an island cloud. That's where we'll find him, if we make it there during the night." "Above?" Luffy asked. "How do we get to him? You guys have wings, but we don't." "Easy," the woman next to Wiper said. "Enel's home is directly above a gigantic beanstalk that grows from the city. We can climb it up to his shrine." "Reiki is right," Wiper said. "The giant jack is so huge it's easy to climb up." "This is all well and good," Nami said from outside, "but will we make to the city in time? It's already past midnight, and we probably won't make it to Upper Yard's shores until almost 1 in the morning." "She has a point," Vivi agreed. "Unless you guys know Enel's schedule, we might need to wait another night." Wiper frowned at this, rubbing his chin. "It's a guess," he admitted, "but given Enel's character, I'd wager he sleeps until noon, if not past it. He's not exactly someone who gives a damn about his duties. I don't think we have to worry about him. We would need to worry about his priests, though." "Are those his cronies?" Zoro asked. "They are," Reiki said. 4 powerful warriors trained in mantra. They will definitely be up before noon, keeping Upper Yard safe from people like us. But if we blitz fast enough, we could get past them and to Enel before he has a chance to wake." Luffy had to admit, even by his standards, this was a rough plan. It all seemed to hinge on taking Enel by surprise, but if they couldn't get to him before he woke up, then there was no point. Still though, if he was supposed to be a natural counter, did it matter? Enel couldn't beat him very easily, if at all. That would make all the difference. "If it's this easy," Vivi said, "why haven't you already done this?" That was a good point too. As far as Luffy could see, he was not required at any point of this mission as it was. "This is the plan if everything were to go perfectly," Wiper replied with a grimace. "But obviously it won't. Upper Yard is home to many dangers, and the odds we get to the city before dawn are slim. But we do still need surprise to gain the upper hand. Enel knowing we're coming will only spell trouble. Not to mention, even if all of that went well, we wouldn't be able to kill him without Luffy present." "Why not?" Luffy asked. Because like I said, Enel is lightning, Wiper replied. If we tried to stab him, or shoot him, his mantra would warn him, even asleep, and wake him. Then, his fruit would react and save his life. Sneaking to him is the best way to ensure we don't die on the way. Upper yard is Enel's stomping ground, Reiki added. If we did this while he was awake, he'd just hit us with lightning on our way. Which is why we need the rubber man. Ah, Luffy could see it now. This was definitely only possible because he could strike Enel at all. At least, that was the theory. Well, what are we waiting for? He asked. Let's get going. On the way to the Mary, Wiper took the time to introduce his crew to Luffy's. He gave Reiki an introduction, though they already knew her name. He pointed out Bram, who was a massive man with no shirt and a hat covering his eyes. Luffy wondered how he saw anything. He introduced Mayushika as well, a more tattooed Shandian than the others, and a bald head. I sent Genbo, Warashi and Yatsubane to our armory, he added as they entered the cloud tunnel back up to where Mary was moored. Told them to grab a bunch of dials and whatever else they could carry. Hope you're quick with your tools, Usopp. Usopp seemed nervous as Wiper placed his faith in him, but did not speak against the warrior, perhaps in fear of him. The walk back up to Mary was uneventful, and they soon reached the top of the cloud and pulled it open, revealing their ship waiting for them. Reiki volunteered to jump the distance and lower the gangplank so they could all board, using her skates to glide across the little bit of clouds between them and jump aboard. After fumbling a little, Reiki lowered the gangplank and allowed everyone else to get on. Don't go without us, someone said. Luffy turned to see 3 men joining them, all carrying bags of weapons over their shoulder. Luffy could only assume they were the aforementioned men sent to the armory. Once they were on board and lowered the bags, Wiper introduced them. Genbo was the fattest Shandian Luffy had seen, which made him wonder how he got to be that big in a village with very little extra food lying around. Yatsubane was a tall man with white hair, his defining feature being his cap with feathers sticking out of it. Warashi too had a hat, also having feathers on the top. It was a cool look, he had to admit. Once they were all on, Luffy gave the order and the Mary began her journey to Upper Yard. Before they could do anything else though, Luffy wanted to see the dials. He walked over to where Usopp was fiddling with them, peering over his shoulder as Kamakiri explained them. This one is a flame dial, he said to them as he held up a bright red shell. It absorbs heat in the atmosphere naturally then releases it in a torrent of flame. It's a useful one. He put it down and picked up another. This is an impact dial. Wiper showed you this. It absorbs kinetic energy and releases it when you press the button here. Luffy was fascinated by the shell's abilities, honestly. How could a simple shell do all of that? Think you can do anything with these? Usoing to the bag of dials brought with them. Usopp hummed to himself as he stared at the bag. I probably could, he admitted, but I won't have the time to jury-rig anything useful before we get there. At the very least, we should distribute these to our less powerful members. They'll be useful in dangerous scenarios. That sounds good to me, Luffy replied as he stood up and watched Upper Yard grow closer in the distance. Hey Wiper, how long is the walk to this ancient city? Who knows, Wiper replied from the boarding net, hanging from it to get an unobstructed view of their destination. Anywhere from 2 hours to 8 or more. The jungles of Upper Yard are full of dangers. Bugs, swamps, quicksand, all of that. Not to mention Nola. Nola? Johnny asked him, who is Nola? Hopefully a pretty lady, Sanji noted with an interested look, making Genbo laugh. Nola is a massive snake, he told Sanji, upsetting the cook. She's descended from one of the old gods, Kashigami. She was an ally to our ancestors, but ever since we got shot up to Skypia and no one can ring the bell, she's gone a little crazy. She chases down anyone she catches sight of. She was an ally? Robin asked curiously. Could that change once again, in our favor? Doubt it, Warashi replied, crossing his arms. Nola would need to hear the bell and be reminded of Calgara and the old Shandians she loved. I doubt she would help us at all. Calgara? Luffy asked, isn't that Wiper's great whatever grandpa? It is, Reiki replied. Why? Luffy made a face and pointed at Wiper. Why not send Wiper to her? He asked, maybe she'll see the resemblance. Wiper's frown deepened at this, and he looked away from them. You yourself said you could not see the resemblance, he said. How do you expect a massive snake to? Luffy just shrugged at this, making Reiki giggle. Don't worry yourself about it, she said. With any luck, Nola will be asleep as well and we can avoid her completely. I sure hope so, Usopp said. How big is she, again? Big enough to swallow any of us whole without chewing, Kamakiri remarked with a smirk, throwing the dial up and down, catching it. Usopp audibly gulped at this. Yeah, I really hope she's a deep sleeper, he said. The crew went about their preparations as Mary got closer and closer to Upper Yard, no one wanting to leave without something vital. Impact and flame dials were distributed among the crew, and ammo was replenished and double-checked. Pretty soon, the bay that they were sailing to came into view, and Mary approached the shore. How close can we get before stopping? Yosaku asked, already lifting the anchor. Right up to it, I guess, Nami replied. It's not a regular island, so it's not in the ground. Also, don't throw the anchor into the clouds, Yosaku. It won't do anything. The swordsman laughed sheepishly and lowered the anchor, making Marianne snort. Mary finally got to the shoreline, and Yosaku was allowed to toss the anchor down into the sand. Once they made sure they were secured, the gangplank was lowered and first of the invaders made landfall. Yeah, this is definitely part of Jaya all right, Nojiko said as they stared up at the huge trees and listened to bugs hum in the distance. It all feels very familiar. Does that mean there's more giant bugs? Chopper asked weakly. Yes, Wiper replied as he walked past the doctor, making him squeak in surprise. Don't worry about that. All of us traveling in a group, there's no way a few bugs will hurt. Not with all these flame dials we have, Kamakiri said, one in hand. So, which way should we go, fearless leader? Straight to the city, Wiper replied as he pointed. Can you see the giant jack, pirates? She's right there. Luffy raised an eyebrow but looked up as instructed, and his mouth dropped open. Holy shit, it's huge, he shouted, staring in awe at the humongous beanstalk snaking into the sky. It was so huge it managed to disappear into the layer of clouds hundreds if not thousands of feet above them, and it looked thick enough to be considered its own island if it were cut in half. I know you said giant, but that is way bigger than just giant. It must be a form of high-altitude gigantism, Robin mused. You see it at bottom of the ocean as well. Animals and plants grow huge to adapt to unfriendly environments. Perhaps that's why Nola has grown so big. Maybe we'll see other huge animals that will be desperate to tear us apart and eat us. You're kinda scary, big sis Robin, Johnny said as he inched away from her slowly. She simply smiled back at him, which just made him move further away. Well, at least we'll always know where we're going, Sanji said. That way forehead sword style over there won't get lost. Yeah, Zoro agreed. It's so big even edgy morons who cover one eye with their hair could see it. Don't start, Nijiko warned the pair before a fight broke out. We'll probably want something to eat before the fighting starts. Johnny, Yosaku, go and fetch some food from our storage. How much? Yosaku asked, scratching his head. Nijiko cast a glance at Luffy, who just watched her blankly. Enough to make sure Luffy doesn't eat all of it on us, she replied. The swordsmen groaned, slumping their shoulders as they walked back up the gangplank. Marianne walked behind them, twirling a paintbrush in her hand. I'll paint them and increase their strength, she noted as she went. Knowing Luffy we'll need to carry a shipload of food anyway. The trio disappeared back onto the Mary, making Luffy take a head count. Usopp, Vivi, he called, hurry it up, I'm coming. Luffy, Usopp snapped, peeking his head above the railing. I'm making sure I carry as much of our ammo and resources as I can. Some of us need it. I've got some of it too, Vivi called, appearing as well. I want to make sure I have enough to defend me's. Vivi was cut off as Mary erupted from the water, clutched in gigantic claws. Ah shit. Wiper shouted, a super express speedy shrimp. Luffy didn't need that info, he already recognized it as one of the shrimp that had grabbed them earlier. Gritting his teeth, he reared back and prepared an attack, aiming at the shrimp's face. It sadly didn't matter. In one swift movement, the shrimp reared back and shot out of the bay, going to the left. Luffy watched, mouth agape, as Vivi and Usopp reached for them desperately. Zoro, he shouted, Sanji, both men understood him immediately, and grabbed a hold of Luffy to keep him anchored as he extended his arm and shot it after the shrimp, flying past the edge of the bay and veering left to follow it. Luffy couldn't see the Mary or the shrimp, but he didn't stop extending his arm. He couldn't, he had to reach them. Luffy kept extending for what felt like forever, desperately wiggling his fingers to try and grab Mary and either haul them back or shoot after them. He couldn't feel anything, they were already long gone. Shit! He shouted angrily, his arm snapping back to him. That itself took 20 seconds, which told him he'd extended pretty far. Wiper, we have to go after them. He whirled on the Shandian warrior, who was watching him with a pained expression. We can't, he said, we don't have time. Excuse me? Luffy demanded. The tone of the remaining Straw Hats morphed instantly. Zoro and Sanji too glared at Wiper, the tension in the air rising. Nijiko's hand had gone to her revolver, and Nami had reached for her cleam attack. Chopper was growling, halfway to changing into his muscle form. Robin remained neutral, but her expression was icier than normal. To his credit, Wiper did not back down. I said we don't have time, he said. The shrimp will have taken them to the altar, which is past Giant Jack by a considerable degree. If we go after them, we won't catch Enel off guard and we'll have to contend with him once he's prepared. That isn't a possibility you want to face. Are you suggesting we abandon them? Nami asked, a deep scowl on her face. I'm saying you trust that they will head to Gianted. We can't afford to go after them if you want the element of surprise. That's just how it is. Can't they handle themselves? Kamakiri asked. They're fighters, same as you. Two of them are, at best, Nijiko said, looking to Zoro. How is Yosaku and Johnny's training going? Fine, Zoro replied. Are they good enough to defeat a priest who can read their moves? I doubt it. We're going after them, Luffy decided. Show us the way to the altar. Wiper's frown deepened. I told you, we don't have time, he insisted. They'll be fine. Have faith in your crew. I don't mean to sound rude, Robin said, speaking up for the first time since the abrupt disappearance. But the crew members kidnapped are not our strongest. I do not wish to see them torn to shreds by angry sky animals or sacrificed to a god by these priests. But I fear they may not have enough strength to resist. Also, it may not be a good look if the Princess of Alabasta dies on her first voyage as a member of the crew, Captain. Exactly, Luffy agreed. Show us how to get there. And sacrifice our advantage? Wiper demanded, not backing down. Not a chance. Luffy grit his teeth angrily, anger clouding his mind. Then say goodbye to your help. I'll go save my crew. Then go ring the bell at my leisure. You need me, but I don't need you. You want to survive the jungle. You do need me, Wiper retaliated, stepping closer to Luffy and glaring him down. Luffy wasn't scared of the older man, not in the slightest. Nolo would eat you whole without our help. Yeah? Well, Enel will fry your stupid ass to a crisp without my help, I already said. I don't care about your people's story. I came to ring the bell for cricket. I'm perfectly content with letting Enel rule this stupid bit of land. Wiper's expression darkened, and he took another step closer. I should have blown up your ugly ship when I had the chance, he hissed, grabbing a hold of Luffy's vest. Luffy just glared back at him, reaching up and grabbing a hold of his braided hair. I should have let the others toss you overboard, he retaliated. Wiper's eyes narrowed, and he raised his free hand and balled it into a fist. He threw the punch for Luffy's head, as Luffy did the same and aimed for Wiper's. Before either hit could connect, Luffy was pulled back by two pairs of arms, and a fist crashed directly into Wiper's forehead, making him crumble downwards. Easy Luffy, Nami said in his left ear. She sounded livid, but controlled. Don't start a war for no reason. Vivi worked too hard to form this alliance for you to ruin it, Nijiko said in his right. Luffy grunted in response to the sisters, not resisting as they hauled him away from Wiper. As for the Shandians, it had been Reiki who had slammed her knuckles into Wiper's scalp, and was now hoisting him to his feet. What do you think you're doing? Trying to fight our answer? Reiki demanded, Wiper glaring back at her silently. I've let you lead this suicidal escapade quietly, but enough is enough. Have some empathy, you giant oaf. Reiki. Wiper started, but the Shandian woman raised a hand threateningly. Don't, Reiki, me. I know all you care about is Calgara's legacy and restoring us to our home. But how do you plan to accomplish that without the rubber man? Exactly. Did you have a plan? Or did you start a fight because he dared to care about his own allies? What would you do if I or anyone else got taken? Wiper's annoyed silence was a better answer than any words could have been. Exactly, Reiki replied, lowering her arms. You go after us. So stop butting heads like two enraged bulls. Besides, we don't all need to go after his friends. Huh? Wiper asked, raising an eyebrow. Reiki sighed and turned to Luffy. I'll go after your friends, she told him. If it's one of us, our skates will let us reach the altar faster than sailing upriver or trudging through the jungle. With any luck, I'll get there before the sun comes up and they get attacked by the priests. Reiki then turned to the other warriors, gesturing to Genbo. Genbo, you're with me. You won't need the two of us, will you? Wiper didn't provide an answer, which was enough of a confirmation to Reiki it seemed. The woman walked up to Luffy and bowed her head slightly. Forgive Wiper, she said, his temper gets the better of him more often than not. He meant no offense to you. Luffy just stared back at the woman quietly, before Nami drove her elbow into his ribs. It's fine, Luffy said, getting the message. He's got a lot on his mind. Thank you for going after my crew. Reiki nodded with a small smile, casting a glance over her shoulder at Wiper, who just watched her. If that's all, I'll get going, Reiki said as she walked a few steps away. Is there anything else before I go? Luffy watched the woman quietly for a moment, before turning to look at his remaining crew. Can you take someone from my crew with you? He asked. Reiki raised an eyebrow at this. Sure, we have an extra pair of skates, she said, turning to Genbo, right? Yeah, from the armory, he said, dropping the sack from his shoulders and moving through it. Luffy turned to look at Nami, who met his eyes. Can you go with them? He asked, making her narrow her eyes at him. Why? She asked, do you think I can't handle myself? I never said that, Luffy replied. Even though they know this island better than us, you're an excellent navigator. If there's any chance you can get this done quicker, I want you to do it. Okay. Besides, I feel a lot better knowing one of us is going. I go myself, but as Wiper said, that's not ideal. There was silence among the Straw Hats at this, all of them watching him. Luffy, Nijiko asked, did you just use your head? What? Luffy demanded, looking at her, why is that surprising? He asks like it isn't obvious, Sanji said, making Zoro snort. Nami smiled back at him after this, putting her hands on her hips. Well, I guess I have too, she said, since you put your faith in me and all. Don't worry, I'll make sure we get them to Giant Jack in one piece. Luffy smiled back at her. Thanks, he said. Nami moved to take the extra skates from Genbo, and with help from Reiki attached them to her feet. She got a quick crash course in how to use them, which she seemed to take better than Luffy thought she would have. After making sure Nami wouldn't faceplant, the trio said their farewells and took off into the jungle, jumping over the tree line and disappearing. Well, looks like we're ready to go, Bram said, crossing his arms, or does anyone else want to split up? Johnny had no idea what was happening. All he knew is that he'd be thrown into the wall of the Mary at vicious speeds and hit his head. Thinking quickly, he grabbed Marianne as she almost met the same fate as himself and Yosaku, making sure she didn't hit her head. What the hell is happening? Yosaku asked over the sound of clouds being smashing into Mary's stern. Why are we moving? It's got to be one of those damn shrimp, Marianne shouted from Johnny's chest. We got taken. Was anyone on the deck still? Johnny asked, both of them shrugging back at him. Shit, Yosaku. Take little sis Mari, I'll check the deck. Nodding, Yosaku grabbed Marianne and shielded her so she wouldn't fall. Doing his best, Johnny struggled his way towards the stairs, stumbling and falling a few times as the shrimp veered quickly in different directions. Where the hell were they going? Finally making it up the stairs and into the cabin, Johnny made it to the door and flung it open, his eyes widening. A bit farther away from him, clinging on for dear life, was Usopp and Vivi. As the shrimp veered deeper into the forest, Vivi was nearly flung off the ship, making his stomach drop. I need to protect them, they're my crew. Big bro Usopp. Big sis Vivi. He shouted. The wind successfully carried his voice to them, making them turn and see him. Come here and get in the cabin, it's safer. Are you crazy? Usopp yelled. What if it veers again and we get flung off? Would you reheat cabin wall? Johnny demanded. Don't worry, I'll catch you if something goes wrong. Do you trust me? Not really, Usopp cried, but Vivi had a determined look in her eyes. Yes, she shouted, making him smile. Vivi got to her feet carefully, casting a glance behind them to see where the shrimp was going. Once she was confident enough, she released the railing and stumbled towards him. The shrimp sharply turned left, which Vivi almost managed to escape. As she got flung to the left, Johnny reached out and grabbed her arm, pulling her safely into his arms. "Thank you," Vivi shouted over the wind, smiling up at him. "No problem," he shouted back, looking up. "Come on, big bro Usopp, come over here where it's safe." "Usopp, hurry," Vivi coaxed, "I made it just fine." "I don't know if I can," Usopp shouted back, his arms shaking. Johnny could not tell if it was because of the fear, or his arms were about to give out. "I know you can," Vivi shouted. Johnny turned to look at her in surprise as she continued. "You're the brave warrior of the sea, aren't you? The best sniper in all the seas? You're Usopp the Great. This is nothing." Johnny smiled at her coercion, turning to look back at Usopp. "You're the bravest man alive," he shouted. "This is nothing." Usopp didn't look totally reassured, but he was slowly making it to his feet as they spoke. "Why yeah," he said, "I am the bravest. This is nothing." After a few more seconds of reassurance, Usopp released the railing and slowly made his way to them. The knot in Johnny's stomach got worse as he watched him, just waiting for the inevitable turn from the shrimp. It was a good thing he prepared himself. Right before Usopp got to them, the shrimp sharply turned. Usopp lost his balance and flew for the railing, but Johnny was faster. Right before the sniper went over, Johnny got a hold of his hand and heaved them both back within the cabin, Vivi slamming the door as they got inside. "Then you Johnny," Usopp cried as he scrambled to his hands and knees, bowing to him. "You're the best cabin boy ever." "Is now really the time to call me the cabin boy?" Johnny asked, laughing in disbelief. Vivi managed a laugh at this as well, and once Usopp got to his feet they scrambled below deck for safety. "You guys good?" Yosaku asked, anchoring himself and Marianne as the shrimp took another violent turn. "We're fine," Vivi said, stumbling down the last few steps. "We were the only ones left, so it's just us." "We're all the weakest members too," Usopp shouted when he saw Yosaku and Marianne. "If someone comes for us we're screwed." "Weak?" Yosaku demanded. "I'll have you know little sis Mari and I defeated a numbers agent in Alabasta." Mary's cheeks flushed pink at this, but she nodded. "Yeah," she agreed, "we aren't massive pushovers." "Still, he has a point," Vivi said as they all huddled within a circle of crates for protection. "We are on the weaker side. We should stay hidden until Luffy and the others come for us." "Any idea where we're being taken?" Mari asked. "No," Johnny replied, "but we are still in Upper Yard. Maybe we get lucky and the shrimp takes us right to the ancient city." "I doubt we're that lucky," Usopp mumbled. "Agreed," Vivi said. "Listen, we should prepare for a fight if we have to." "Johnny, Yosaku, are you two ready to fight?" Johnny swallowed hard, grabbing the hilt of Tsutomakura at his side. "Of course," he said, "we'll protect you guys." "I've got my paints as well," Mari said. "With that, you guys can be a little stronger for whatever comes for us." "I have still got my custom ammo and some dials Wiper gave us," Usopp said, digging into his pack. "These could be helpful." Vivi nodded, giving them all a somewhat forced smile. "Don't worry guys, we'll get through this just fine. Let's remind these guys that you don't mess with anyone in the Straw Hat crew." As she said this, the whole of the Mary groaned around them, something above them splintering. "Let's just hope Mary makes it to our destination," Johnny grumbled. If Nami was in a less tense situation, she would have been over the moon at her quick mastery of the shooter skates. After learning the basics from Reiki and Genbo, it only took her 5 or so minutes to get accustomed to skating across the clouds like she was ice skating. Before long they were zooming across the rivers through Upper Yard, jumping from river to river as they went deeper in. Looking up, she saw that Giant Jack was still ahead of her, meaning they weren't close yet. She hoped it didn't take too much longer to get past it, otherwise they might not make to the city before dawn. "You're a natural at this," Reiki called over her shoulder, making Nami snap out of her thoughts. "Have you skated before?" "No," Nami replied as they took a sharp turn right. "I guess my sea legs are just really good." "I'll say," she replied. "If you can keep this up, we stand a much better chance of getting to your friends quickly." That was good. She'd been worried that they wouldn't get there before someone else did. Granted, this was not a battalion to fight, it was to get in and out safely. Just stay safe guys, she murmured under her breath, we're coming. It had been a while since Mary had stopped moving, but no one had moved yet. Vivi remained perfectly still in between the crates as Mary moaned and groaned, the stress of their adventure getting to her. As if getting grabbed by the shrimp wasn't enough, the poor caravel had been dragged upwards at the final leg of their journey. The sounds she was making reminded her of bones snapping. It wasn't a pleasant comparison. I think we're okay for now, Johnny said after a while. I don't hear anything, but I'll go check just to make sure. Yell if you need us, Yosaku said as his partner walked past him. Johnny nodded and ascended the stairs, putting on a brave face for them. Vivi held her breath as the door of the cabin opened, and Johnny took a few steps outside. Silence abounded, and Vivi did her best to control her imagination as she waited for him to say anything. You can come out, Johnny eventually said, we're alone. The four remaining below took this advice to heart, getting out from behind their makeshift camp between supply crates and climbing the stairs. Vivi was last out, and when she got out her eyes widened. Mary had been left grounded on top of what looked like a massive altar in the center of a lake of clouds. Beyond the clouds were trees so tall they looked like they went on forever, with vines as thick as her whole body hanging from them. When she looked down towards the clouds, her stomach turned when she saw fins sticking out of the water. Are those sharks? Usopp asked for her. Mari jumped to look over the railing. Looks like sharks, she said solemnly. With our luck, huge ones too. So what do we do now? Vivi asked. We can't get out of here. We only have two options, Yosaku said. We either stay put, or try and get to that city Wiper mentioned. It's at the base of that giant beanstalk or whatever, so we know where to go. Vivi looked upwards, just barely able to see the massive stalk through the darkness. Well, Usopp said. Who's making that decision? Silence fell upon the five of them. Vivi cast a wary glance at all her crewmates, seeing that none of them looked too thrilled at the potential of being in charge. Usopp looked ready to wet himself, Mari looked annoyed, and both swordsmen were warily scanning their surroundings. Thankfully, or perhaps unfortunately, she knew what it felt like to be in a position of power. If I'm to be in charge, she said, you have to listen to me, okay? We'll only get out of this if we work together. All ears, big sis, Johnny replied. Vivi took a deep breath and scanned their surroundings, looking for answers. Yosaku is right that we only have those two options, she said. If we stay here, we have an excellent vantage point where anyone to come for us. We're elevated and surrounded by sharks. They help just as much as they hinder us in that scenario. And if we leave? Mari asked. We're at the mercy of the forest, Vivi said. As if to prove her point, some creature howled from the trees, making Usopp jump. I hate to be the one to say it, but this group isn't built for offense. If we were to get caught out by something too big for us to handle, we'd die. Which will happen if we stay anyway, Mari said. All eyes turned to her as she continued. I don't think the shrimp brought us to an altar to give us a present. Probably not, Vivi agreed grimly. We're probably supposed to be a sacrifice once a priest wakes up. A horrible thought occurred to Vivi, but she pushed it down. Damned if we leave, damned if we don't, Johnny summed up. Basically, Vivi nodded. Give all of that, though, I say we stay. Usopp will have a great vantage point here, whereas in the forest we would not. I agree with that, Usopp said. I'd be no help in the dense brush. Not to mention all the hazards out there, Mari noted. With our luck, one of these two idiots would fall in quicksand and die. Johnny and Yosaku both stared at her when she said this to them. I think you'd die in quicksand first, little sis, Yosaku said pointedly. I'm not that dumb, Mari replied. Yeah, Johnny said, but you are that short. Silence fell over the crew as the trio stared at one another. Vivi had to hold in a laugh at how adorable Mary's angry face was. Let's not waste time, she said, moving on from Mary's height. Usopp, take up a vantage point on the cabin roof. It's safer than the crow's nest, and gives you a great view. Usopp nodded at this, shouldering his rifle. Johnny, Yosaku, patrol from the deck. Usopp has great eyes, but he has none on the back of his head. I want eyes in every direction. You got it, big sis, Yosaku said. Saluting to her, Johnny mimicked his motion, making her smile weakly. Mari, she said, turning to the painter, are your paints ready? Some are, she said. gesturing to the cabin, but I need to mix some more of the difficult colors. Care to help me with that? Sure thing, she said. You three, holler if you see anything, and I do mean anything. Aye, Vivi, Usopp said. Yosaku give me a boost to the cabin roof. On it, Yosaku agreed. As she walked back to the cabin, Vivi watched Yosaku bend down and put his hands together, pushing Usopp up as he stepped on his hands. Wow, you're strong, Usopp commented. You did that so easily. I guess Big Bro Zoro's training has worked a bit, huh? He asked sheepishly, rubbing his head. That was nothing, Mari said as she paused in the door. You should see him take a cannonball to the face. Yeah, but I had to protect you, little sis, Yosaku told her. Vivi noted how Mary's cheeks flushed at this, giggling quietly as she followed the painter into the cabin. My recipes are fairly easy to follow, Mari said as they descended the stairs. Just ask if you're not sure about the compound or whatever. Got it, Vivi said. I've always wondered how your paint works. It isn't a devil fruit, is it? It's not, Mari said, it's a trade secret. Just follow my instruction. Gauging she wasn't going to get more out of the painter on this subject, Vivi's thoughts moved elsewhere. Can I tell you something, Mari? She asked as the painter set down her kit. She looked up with questioning eyes. Sure, she said. Vivi took a deep breath as she sat down opposite her and the paint kit. I'm worried about sunrise, she said. Why? Mari asked. Cause the priests or Enel will wake up. Yes, that, Vivi said, but we're really high in the sky right now. And Vivi shifted uncomfortably. Well, the sun sets and rises on the horizon, she explained slowly, but we're well above the horizon, so she could see the realization dawn on Mary's face. So the sun will rise faster up here, she said. Dawn to Skypia isn't dawn for the blue sea. Exactly, Vivi said. I don't know if it'll happen or if the change is significant, but I also don't recall Wiper saying the exact time the sun will rise. Mari said. Silence fell between the pair before Mari sighed. I guess we better work fast then, huh? I guess so, Vivi agreed. Mari handed her a recipe book, telling her to just start on the simple paints. Vivi flipped through the book, trying to gauge which paint would be helpful. Hey, Vivi? Mari asked. Vivi looked up from the book to see the painter watching her again. Yes, she asked. Mari squirmed where she sat, looking uncomfortable. Why did you tell me that and not the others? She asked. Well, that's easy, she said. I don't need Usopp freaking out even more, and neither Johnny or Yosaku would help him remain calm. You trust me to remain calm? She asked. Vivi smiled at her. I just flat out trust you, Mari, she said. Vivi smiled wider when she saw the blush hitting Mary's cheeks. She was so easy to tease. Besides, I need a second in command while we're stuck here. And no offense to the guys, but I think you're the best fit for that. You think? Mari asked. I do, Vivi agreed. The painter did not say more, returning her eyes to her paints. Vivi just smirked as she returned her gaze to the book, focusing so she could read the exact amounts needed. Despite this focus, she still heard Mari mumble a thank you. It had to have been over an hour of walking so far, and Luffy was already ready to beat someone's ass. Granted, his crew being kidnapped and Wiper had not helped that attitude to simmer down. The team of Wiper's men and his remaining crew trudged quietly through the forest, keeping their eyes out for anything that might have been dangerous. Wiper's crew mostly took charge of that, seeing as they knew the terrain. Wiper himself stayed far away from Luffy, which he appreciated. He still wanted to punch the guy. He'd have to settle that later though. Luffy, someone said. Looking over his shoulder, he saw Nijiko motioning for him. Slowing down, Luffy matched his stride to his quartermaster's and turned to her. Yeah? He asked. Nijiko watched him with a serious expression, one she usually wore right before she chastised him or the other men. I think you should go smooth things out with Wiper, she whispered, gesturing forward to their guide. Luffy looked over at him, annoyance bubbling up again. He started it, he complained. I know, she agreed, and I wanted to hit him too. But the last thing we need right now is our leaders fighting against one another, instead of with one another. Do you understand? Luffy frowned at her, crossing his arms. I'm not gonna apologize for trying to punch him or leave, he said. Then don't, she replied. Do you remember what Vivi taught you? Don't chew with your mouth open. He asked. recalling one night earlier in the week when Vivi has chastised him for doing so. He'd stretched his lips closed after that. "No, not that," Nijiko said as patiently as she could. "I mean when you spoke to Masira after attacking his men. Words are powerful if you use them right. Don't apologize for trying to hit him or leave. Just say something else to smooth it over. Get it?" Luffy mulled this over in his mind, humming to himself. He recalled how he hadn't lifted a finger at the bar in Mock Town. Shanks did use to say violence doesn't always have to be the answer, he mused. "Exactly," Nijiko said. "Use your words, get back on the same page as him. We'll need it." Sighing, but knowing the woman was right, Luffy nodded and sped up his stride, jumping over fallen logs and mud to catch Wiper. The Shandian had gone far ahead, presumably to keep distance between himself and Luffy. "Yo, Wiper," Luffy said, starting as casually as he could. "Wait up." Wiper cast a wary eye over his shoulder, clearly tense from hearing his voice. "What is it?" he asked curtly. "Just wanted to talk," Luffy said, still searching his mind for the right thing to say. Why did Vivi have to be on the ship? The Straw Hats needed their voice, about earlier. "What about it?" Wiper asked, returning his eyes to the tree line. Luffy thought quietly for a moment, trying to know what Wiper would want to hear. He put himself in the warrior's shoes, thinking as hard as he could. "I regret losing my cool back there," he said, trying not to celebrate his awesome word choice. "I know having to choose between my crew and your mission wasn't a hard decision, especially since you don't know them well." Wiper eyed him quietly for a moment, and for a second Luffy worried he'd said the wrong thing. Thankfully, though, Wiper sighed and turned to him. "I regret trying to make you choose," he said. His face made him look unhappy, but his words were sincere. "That's an easy decision for you to make. I'd have made the same one, were I you. Some random guy's mission would not be as important as my people. It's just..." He paused. "Well, it doesn't matter. I suppose I'm trying to apologize." Luffy tilted his head as he watched Wiper, thinking of his next words carefully. "You really want to reclaim this land for your people, huh?" he asked. "Of course," Wiper said, clenching his fists. "It's been a dream of mine ever since I was a child. And now, I might have the answer right before me. And I nearly lost it because I want it so badly." "Your dream, huh?" Luffy asked. Wiper nodded, making Luffy sigh. "You should start with that next time." "Huh?" Wiper asked, sounding confused. "Let's put that fight behind us, tattoos," Luffy said, holding out his hand to Wiper. "Let's kick Enel out of this place and reclaim it." Wiper stared at his open hand for a moment, seemingly thinking, before raising his arm and clasping his hand with his own. "Let's do that," he said with a smirk, "and then we can party in the City of Gold. All night long. You can punch me for trying to make you abandon your crew then." "Actually, start with that," Luffy said. "The party, not the punch." Luffy nearly did a double take when Wiper cracked a smile. "I'll do that," he said. Before anyone could do or say anything else, a thunderous crack echoed through the forest around them, making everyone jump and look around warily. "What the hell was that?" Zoro asked, swords drawn. Luffy looked over to Wiper to see he was nervous. "Not now," the Shandian hissed. "Why is she awake?" "Why is who awake?" he asked. Wiper grit his teeth as another tree was snapped somewhere in the distance, followed by a deep hissing. "Nola, the giant snake," he replied. "I hoped she would be asleep, but I guess we aren't that lucky." "So what do we do?" Sanji asked. "Kill it." "Good luck with that," Kamakiri said, scanning the tree line. "Nola is a tough old snake. It'd take the sun god himself to kill her." "Kamakiri's right," Wiper agreed. "We have to stay as far away from her as possible. If she sees us, it's worst case scenario." "How close is she, Bram?" Luffy turned to see the warrior with a hat over his eyes had knelt and placed a hand on the ground, focusing on it. As he did so, another horrific sound echoed through the forest. To Luffy, it sounded like someone was rubbing a massive piece of sandpaper across the ground. "Close," Bram said, "and getting closer. The tremors in the dirt are coming from the west." "Then we head northeast," Wiper said, "and hope she changes course. Let's go everyone. Pick up the pace." As Luffy ran, another tree crashed down somewhere behind them. "Man, that snake sure is angry," he said. "Hey, Chopper, do you think you could talk to it?" "I mean, maybe," Chopper replied. He was in his regular reindeer form, galloping alongside Robin and Najiko. But if Wiper's right and she's gone mad, I don't know if she'd listen. I'm not willing to take that bet, Najiko shouted. If he fails, we get swallowed whole. Your four-legged friend probably wouldn't even get a chance to talk, Warashi said. Nola isn't known for waiting until her meal stops bargaining with her. As the group ran from Nola, Luffy couldn't help but wonder if the crew that was stuck on Mary were okay. Keeping watch for over an hour was tiring. Doing so for close to 2 was even worse. Going on 3 now, Yosaku was ready to collapse egg an eye on the tree line surrounding the altar for so long his eyes were beginning to glaze over. He could feel a yawn coming up every few seconds, and he had to fight it off and stay alert. This operation happening at night meant he wasn't getting any sleep, and that was awful considering how hard he was worked during the day. It was just that morning, after all, that he'd mopped Mary up and down in preparation for their journey into the sky. I'm falling asleep, Johnny, he commented lazily, leaning on the railing. I'm so tired. I know how you feel, Johnny agreed from the opposite side of the ship. I just want to close my eyes, but I can't. Exactly. What if someone comes while we're asleep? He asked. I'd hope Usopp would see him, Johnny replied. Yosaku cast a glance over at the cabin roof, where Usopp was still laying, scanning the river with his rifle scope. Maybe the girls can keep watch, he said. No, Johnny replied, let them sleep. They're the brains of this operation, they need their rest. We just swing our swords at anything that looks like an enemy. That was true. Yosaku was not one for thinking up great plans. Vivi and Mari had that covered. Hey, Johnny. He started. Do you think we can actually defend the Mary? What do you mean? Johnny asked. Well, Yosaku started. Wiper said those priest guys are powerful. Really powerful. I don't mean to sound rude but no one here is particularly strong. We're the strongest, and that isn't saying much. Johnny said nothing for a moment before sighing. We don't have a choice, he said. Yosaku looked over his shoulder at his partner to see he was flipping his blade around in his hand. We swore an oath to protect people. That's what we wanted, right? I don't care if I'm weaker than some priest. I won't let them harm the others without him taking me out first. Yosaku watched him as he twirled his sword, smiling. I was thinking the same thing, he said, just wanted to make sure we had no illusions about our chances if someone does show you. Guys! Usopp shouted, startling both swordsmen and nearly sending Yosaku face first onto the deck. Unidentified flying object inbound. There's someone on it, and I don't think it's gone fall. Yosaku looked up where Usopp was looking, and saw the figure he'd described. There was indeed something flying right for them, with a man riding it. We just had to open our mouths, huh? Johnny asked from his side. Yosaku laughed as he reached over his shoulder and drew Jishin from its hilt. Let's hope they're sleepy too, he replied. Girls wake up, Johnny shouted as he steeled himself, watching the enemy close in on them. Usopp, take him out of the sky. Oh on it, Usopp shouted. Not 1 second later shots rang out, Usopp firing 4 rounds at the attacker. Johnny watched, but none of the shots hit their target. The enemy's bird simply dodged the shots like he knew they were coming. What is it? Vivi asked, appearing from the cabin with Mari close behind her. Enemy incoming. Yosaku told her, stay safe, we can handle this. Don't be stupid, let us help, Mari shouted, but Vivi held her back in the cabin. We'll support you with Mary's paints, she said, be careful though. If it's a priest, he's going to be powerful. Johnny simply nodded in return, looking back towards the incoming enemy. He was now within eyesight for him, and he could see that he was flying on top of a gigantic purple bird that let out a terrifying squawk as they got closer. The man himself seemed to be wearing a leather cap and woolly clothes, probably to protect him from the cold as he flew. Usopp took another shot at him, but the bird dodged again and flew straight up. It landed on the mast of the Mary, and the man looked over its shoulder at them. When he did, Johnny noted his thin mustache and beady eyes. Intruders, he shouted, let it be known this is God Enel's land, on my pride as a priest. I'll sacrifice you in his honor, you should be thankful, as it is a great honor to die for Enel's glory. Sorry, I don't believe in your God, Johnny replied, brandishing Tsutomakura at him. Don't make us kill you, the priest laughed at him. You, kill me? He asked, in your wildest dreams. Warriors of your strength level could not hope to defend against my mantra and my skill. I'll give you one last warning. Lay down your weapons and die quietly." "Why you first?" Usopp shouted. Johnny flinched as another shot was fired, aimed squarely at the man's face. He watched, stunned, as the man simply moved his head to the left, the bullet burying itself in Mary's mast. "You'll be the first to go," he said. "My name is Shira, invaders. Pray to Enel I kill you quickly, Fuza." On his command, the giant bird dove from the mast and Shira raised a javelin. They soared for Usopp on the cabin roof, but Johnny wasn't going to allow him to get close without a fight. Waiting for the perfect moment, he leapt as Fuza flew over his head. Sword of the Sea. Inverse waterfall. Johnny's uppercut slash was aimed at the bird's giant right wing, but it was dodged easily by Shira. This, however, put him directly in Yosaku's path. Sword of the Earth. Boulder drop. Raising Jishin over his head, Yosaku swung it down, aiming directly at Shira's head. This forced him to fly off course, off of Mary and into the open air. "Thanks guys," Usopp said weakly, looking pale white. "No problem, focus on the battle," Johnny replied. "Johnny, Yosaku, over here." Johnny turned his head just in time to see a vial flying for his head, being thrown by Mari. He raised a hand and caught it, staring at the bright orange paint inside. "What is this?" Yosaku asked, having been thrown a vial as well. "It's a new paint I made," Mari shouted. "Orange of adrenaline. It should wake you up. Let you focus on the battle." Johnny smiled at this, uncorking it and splashing it into his arms. As soon as the paint had a moment to seep in, Johnny's eyes snapped open as his brain fired up. He could practically feel his nerves buzzing with energy as whatever was in the paint put his system into overdrive. "Holy shit, little sis Mari," Yosaku exclaimed, "what is in that?" "Never mind what's in it," she shouted, "focus on the battle, I'll try and splash him if he gets close." "Okay, you two stay in the cabin if you can," Johnny said as Shira circled like a predator sixing up its prey. "We can handle this." "Are you sure you don't need us?" Vivi asked, her peacock spinners in her hands. "We can help." "Less people fighting on the deck, the better," Yosaku told her. "Gives us enough space." Vivi looked unsure of this, but she nodded and stayed within the cabin door with Mari. Johnny returned his eyes to Shira, who was still circling. "I'll give you credit, Blue Sea Sailors," he called. "That attack threw me off my target. Still though, you won't be able to stop me. Don't make this harder than it has to be." "Shut up and fight us, if you're so strong," Yosaku called. "Don't fly around like a coward." Shira's response was to swerve in midair and dive bomb directly at Yosaku, who raised his sword to defend himself. Shira raised his javelin and it connected with Jishin, sparks flying. Fuza flapped his wings, and Johnny watched as Yosaku was forced to the edge of the Mary, gritting his teeth, and he tried to force Shira back. "Hold onto him, Yosaku," he shouted, raising his sword and rushing the bird. He jumped and aimed to cleave Shira's head in two, but the man dodged his blow and struck him in the chest with his fist, sending him flying off and into the mast, knocking the wind out of him temporarily. Johnny struggled to get up as he heard another shot ring out, but Shira dodged it once again. "I already said, stop struggling," Shira shouted. With another roar of force, Shira's javelin glowed red hot. Fuza flapped its wings, and as Yosaku was thrown off balance, Shira aimed to impale him with the end. White of blindness, Shira moved in his seat to try and dodge, but the vial thrown by Mari splashed across his back. "Gah, what the Fuza?" Responding to his will, Fuza took off back into the sky, Shira yelling obscenities as he did. "Another new paint?" Johnny wheezed out as he struggled to stand. Mari nodded. "It's not a perfect recipe, so it won't last," she shouted. "Get up, Johnny. It's not over." Nodding in agreement, Johnny focused on his lungs. He fought against the trauma inflicted and forced his lungs to intake air again, letting him slowly get to his feet. Thankfully Shira was still circling, clearly still blinded. "Any ideas?" he asked aloud as they watched him fly around. "Try and hold him still, and it'll only take me one shot," Usopp said. "Hard to do when he's got the bird," Yosaku replied. "I've got something for him. Just distract Shira while I find it." Johnny spared a glance to see that Usopp was digging around in his bag, looking for something. If he needed time, He get it. Shiro was flying back down at them. Javelin poised to impale. Johnny gripped Tsutomu tightly and raised it horizontally, winding his arms back as far as he could. Sword of the Sea. Raging tsunami. Johnny's slash created a ranged attack, his slash flying for Shira and Fuza. Shira used his javelin to deflect it, Fuza evading Yosaku as he tried to swing his own sword. Shira let out a laugh as he circled once more. "You warriors are stronger than I gave you credit for," he called. "You're definitely holding me off." "Wish we had ended this already," Johnny muttered. "Unfortunately, Enel is going to wake up soon. I don't have any more time to play with you." "Fuza." The bird cawed in response and dove again, aiming right for Usopp again. Johnny turned, moving in the direction as well to protect him. He couldn't move. Johnny's eyes widened as his body refused to cooperate, an invisible force stopping him from moving. He spared a glance at Yosaku, who was also struggling to move. "I can't," he started. "Big bro Usopp. Look out." Usopp looked up from rummaging around in his bag, and let out a shriek of terror as Fuza closed in. The sniper leapt from the cabin roof and landed hard on the balcony below him, just barely able to use his arms to stop his face from hitting the deck. "What's wrong, you two?" Vivi shouted. "We can't move," Johnny shouted. "Something is stopping us." Shiro laughed as he circled closer and closer. What a terrible fate to be subjected to, he noted, the two warriors having to watch their weaker comrades die. Fuza, the bird dove, and Usopp struggled to find what was in his pocket again. He hadn't found it yet, but he was given time as Mari appeared before him and chucked a Y into Fuza's eyes. Purple paint splashed all over the bird's eyes, causing it to squawk angrily and fly off, Shira cursing again. "Can you hurry up and find whatever it is you're looking for?" Mari shouted at Usopp. "Purple of confusion is new too, it won't last." "There's a lot of stuff in here." "Okay," Usopp shouted. Finally, he took his hand out, revealing a small rifle cartridge he'd been supposedly looking for. He rebolted his rifle and loaded the round, aiming at Fuza as he circled. Special round. Electric birdshot. Usopp fired, and Johnny watched as a plume of smoke flew out of the barrel. A cloud of pellets flying at Fuza. The bird was struck in the chest, and when the rounds made contact they glowed blue. Johnny's eyes widened as the bird shrieked in pain, the pellets electrocuting him. The bird of prey remained in the air for a second or two before smoke rose from its body, and it began to fall, spiraling down towards the altar. "What the hell was that?" Yosaku asked in awe. "Non-lethal birdshot," Usopp replied. "It's a spread that electrocutes whoever gets hit by it." "Good work, big bro," Johnny replied, watching Fuza fall. As he got close to the deck, Shira jumped off his back and onto the deck, growling as Fuza bounced off the rock altar below. "You'll pay for hurting Fuza," he growled. Johnny tried to run at him, but again was stopped. Shira laughed as he leisurely walked towards him. "What's so funny?" Yosaku demanded. "It's just cute watching people squirm when they realize they're stuck," he replied. "I told you, you never had a chance from the start." "What are you doing to them?" Mari shouted. Shira cackled. "Wouldn't you like to know?" he asked in her direction. "Now, I think I'll take out the girls first. After all, you all fought so valiantly to save them." "Stay away from them," Johnny shouted, but Shira ignored him. He casually strode towards the cabin, chuckling to himself as he ascended the stairs. Vivi already had her peacock spinners spinning, and Mari had another paint bomb in her hand. Usopp was still there as well, but Johnny noted he was struggling to move too. He'd been caught in Shira's web as well. "Get back here," Yosaku roared, struggling against his restraints so hard veins were bulging from his arms and forehead. "I won't ever forgive you if you hurt them." "Whatever would I do without the forgiveness of a few morons?" Shira asked sarcastically from the top step. He looked over his shoulder at them and smirked. "Be a nice, quiet audience. Show's about to start." With every step Shira took, Johnny's stomach turned more violently. There was no way Vivi and Mari could defeat him, especially on their own. Closer and closer he got, and Johnny fought so hard against his restraints his wrists bled. He had to move, he had to help them. "I came with Big Bro Luffy so I could get stronger. I wanted to protect people. How can I do that if I can't stop one man?" "I said get back here." Johnny turned just as the sound of wires snapping resounded around him, and he watched in awe as Yosaku, now free from his binds, rushed towards the stairs. His entire upper body was marred by cuts from what looked like wires digging into his body, leaving him a mess. It didn't stop him though. Yosaku leapt from the deck straight over the railing of the upper deck, Jishin over his head. Shiro looked up in surprise, only having time to raise his javelin over his head as Vivi and Mari leapt off the balcony. Sword of the Earth. Earthquake impact. Yosaku's downward stab was so powerful Johnny felt the blow from where he was. Jishin cleaved straight through the javelin with no issue, Shira forced to leap out of the way back down onto the deck. Yosaku hit the upper deck, Jishin cleaving through Mary's floor and impaled itself up to the hilt. Cracks spread from the stab, the floor groaning from Yosaku's strength. Growling, his partner pulled the blade free and jumped after Shira, raising his sword as Shira regarded his broken javelin in surprise. Well, he said, looks like the dogs have some bark after all. Johnny, don't move, he heard Vivi shout. Doing as he was told, Johnny remained still as Vivi ran behind him, swinging her spinners. In a second he'd been freed from his restraints, his body his own to command again. Thanks big sis, he said, picking up Tsutomakura from where he dropped it. No problem, she said, he's using some sort of wire technique. I noticed when Yosaku was getting sliced up trying to free himself. That made sense. Johnny looked back down at his own wrists, which were injured as well. Now that he thought about it, wires made sense. He hadn't seen his restraints, because they were too hard to see in the dark. Turning, Johnny watched as Shira got to his feet, still holding his broken javelin. Yosaku circled him like a hyena, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I see I was wrong about you, pirates, Shira said. You have my respect. Let's make this more interesting, shall we? Shira turned and drove his broken javelin into Mary's deck, and ignited the weapon. Johnny gasped as the heat ignited Mary's wooden boards, spreading quickly across its surface. Don't hurt the ship, you asshole, Usopp shouted, still restrained. It was a gift. Did I ask if you cared for the ship? Shira asked as the fire grew. He drew a dagger from his belt, and Johnny noted the dial attached to the hilt. Let's see if you can take me down before your ship is turned to ash. I'll free Usopp and we'll come up with a plan, Vivi whispered in Johnny's ear. Keep him distracted, don't give him an inch. I'd never dream of it, big sis, Johnny replied. Smiling, Vivi clapped him on the shoulder reassuringly before running back for Usopp, leaving himself and Yosaku to deal with Shira as Mari watched from the bottom of the stairs. As he came in closer to circle Shira, he assessed his situation. Yosaku was in bad shape. Breaking free from his own binds had cut deeply into his skin, and it was showing. He panted heavily as blood drenched his tropical button-up, the tree pattern gone in the red. He couldn't rely on his friend, he had to do this himself. He cast an eye at Mari, who still had a paint bomb in her hands. She met Johnny's eye, and she raised the bomb and gestured to it, then at him. Johnny secretly pointed a finger at himself, and Mari nodded vigorously. He nodded, and began to circle in her direction. So swordsman? Shira asked, keeping Johnny in his eyesight as Yosaku circled behind him. Don't you want to save your ship? More than anything, Johnny replied, I want to beat your ass, little sis. Crimson battle rage. Just like Yosaku, Johnny became drenched in red. His was not blood, though. His was Mary's chemical paint seeping into his skin. As the paint took effect, Johnny felt his rage amplify, and his eyes narrow. Nothing else existed anymore, just himself and Shira, an enemy he needed to defeat. Roaring, he rushed the priest. Shira raised his dagger to parry Johnny's slash, and the oddest thing happened. The second the priest moved to block, Johnny sensed where his arm would go. He swung low to strike instead, but the priest switched tactics and met his blade there. Shira raised an eyebrow at him as they struggled. Did you just? The priest didn't get a chance to finish, as Yosaku swung down on him from behind. Shira jumped to the side, and Johnny followed. The two engaged in an elegant back and forth of clashing steel, neither allowing the other to gain ground. Every time Johnny predicted where Shira would block, Shira predicted his prediction and blocked him. When Shira aimed to strike, Johnny felt like he knew where it would be and avoided it, only for Shira to seemingly guess first and strike where he was headed instead. Neither landed a hit on the other, but Johnny could tell he was losing ground. His predictions were coming slower than Shira's, and his strikes were becoming sloppy. Shira grinned at him as they locked blades again, the fire blazing. "What's the matter, swordsman?" he asked. "Is your ability waning?" Johnny off-keyed away from Shira and prepared another strike, but the back of his head buzzed for some reason. On instinct he fell to the right, and just as he did Usopp's rifle fired. Shira too dodged the bullet, the projectile splashing into the clouds below the altar. "Fuza." Johnny looked over his shoulder just in time to see the fried bird appear from over the railing, raising its talons at Usopp and Vivi. Vivi used her peacock spinners to fight it off, Usopp trying to get a clean shot over her shoulder. He turned back in time to parry a strike from Shira, who cackled. "Eyes on me, glasses," he said. "Don't lose sight of your enemy." Johnny grit his teeth and roared, pushing Shira away. He attacked with a flurry of slashes, all of which were evaded or blocked. Shira turned to kick Yosaku in the stomach as he tried to advance, knocking him to the ground and making him wheeze. Yosaku did not get up quickly, leaving Johnny to fend for himself. Shira turned and deflected his incoming slash off his dagger, using it to get close and punch him in the stomach. For the second time in a few minutes the wind was forcefully pushed out of Johnny's lungs, and he was kicked down onto his knees. He tried to grab Tsutomakura, but Shira kicked it away, then kicked him onto his back. "Damn you!" Johnny wheezed as he tried to stand, Shira putting a boot on his chest. "You surprised me back there, glasses," Shira told him with a smirk, his stupid mustache making him look even smarmier. "I thought for a moment you had used mantra. But it seems I was wrong. It pains me to tell a warrior this, but it seems this is the extent of your current ability. If you had trained harder or honed your mantra, perhaps you could have defeated me." Johnny had no idea what he was taking about. He looked around wildly for help, but saw none. Vivi and Usopp were still fending off Fuza. Mari was looking frantically for a weapon, and Yosaku had still on his back. No one could help him. He returned his gaze to Shira as the man turned his dagger downwards, preparing to stab him. "You'll regret this," he hissed weakly. "So will you," Shira said. He raised his arm, and Johnny winced as he swung downwards. Boom! Johnny snapped his eyes open at the explosion just in time to see Shira take a cannonball directly to the back, sending him flying off of Johnny. He crashed through the railing and fell off Mary onto the altar, and Johnny could hear him topple down a few steps. What the hell was that? Turning his eyes to the source of the cannonball, Johnny found it. Mary's broadside cannon was aimed towards him. No one was with it. Not Vivi, not Usopp or Mari or Yosaku. Not even anyone else on the crew. The cannon was simply aimed at him, all by itself. Johnny watched the smoke billow from the barrel, his confusion punctuated by Fuza's squawking. From what he could tell, it looked as if Mary's cannon had turned a full 90 degrees on its own and fired at Shira. But that surely hadn't happened, so what had? He was too dumb to think about this. Grabbing his blade, Johnny rushed to where Shira had fallen off just in time to hear a whistle. He looked over his shoulder to see Fuza dive past him, down to the altar. Shira jumped onto the bird, and the pair took off into the sky. "Get back here," Johnny shouted at him, Usopp taking a shot at them. It was dodged, but Shira looked back at them angrily, blood dripping from his mouth. "This isn't over, invaders," he shouted, "your lucky reinforcements came for you," making a face. Johnny looked back at the clouds in confusion. There, racing across the clouds on skates, was a mane of orange hair. "Big sis Nami," he shouted in surprise. Nami was accompanied by two of Wiper's warriors, and they all jumped up onto the deck with the skate's propulsion. Looking back, Johnny saw Shira and Fuza were already far away, too far away for them to do anything. Laughing humorlessly, Johnny collapsed onto the deck. "Johnny, are you okay?" Nami asked, rushing to his side. He nodded weakly, taking his glasses off to wipe at his eyes. "I'm fine," he said. "Help Yosaku." Nodding, Nami turned and rushed to the other swordsmen, yelling at Vivi and Usopp to help her. The man with them immediately set out drenching the fire with water, which he did with dials they had brought with them. "Fine work, swordsman," the woman, Reiki, said as she approached him. "You managed to fend off a priest of Enel. Very impressive." Fend off? Johnny asked, leaning his head against the wood behind him. Nah. We survived. I'd say you won all things considered. Reiki's expression softened at this, kneeling next to him. As long as you draw breath, you're still in the fight, she said to him. Take a moment to catch your breath. We'll tend to you and put out the flames. But we don't have long to rest. Nodding quietly, Johnny watched as Reiki joined the other man, Genbo, in putting out the flames. He spared a glance towards Yosaku, who was having his chest wrapped tightly in bandages by the others. Mari pouring green paint onto his arms. He snorted and put his head back again. I have to train harder, huh? He asked. No shit. He then turned his eyes back to the cannon that had saved his life, which was still aimed towards him. No one popped out to say they had fired it, so it remained an anomaly he could not explain. Johnny just scoffed as he put his glasses back on and crossed his legs. Thanks for the help, Mary, he said jokingly. A warm feeling flooded his mind when he said this, which he attributed to Mary's paint wearing off. Shura grimaced as Fuza flew through the forest, heading back in the direction of the city. He hadn't expected to take a cannonball to the back, and he was fairly certain it had broken some of his bones. Those warriors were stronger than I anticipated, he mumbled to himself. That one who freed himself from the ordeal of strings was a surprise, but that other one. I swear, it felt like he was using mantra. Sighing, Shura fought off the pain he felt and reached into a pouch on his belt, pulling out his radio dial and clicking the button. Gedatsu, he said, Satori. Don't underestimate these invaders, or they might kill you on accident. When aren't you sweet, Shura? Ohm's voice came back. That's a nice way to tell us you got your ass beat. Shura growled as Gedatsu and Satori laughed as well. Shut up and listen, he said. I'm serious. They're actually formidable. It matters not what they can do, Gedatsu replied. Enel will rise from his slumber shortly. They are without a hope when the time comes. Shura wheezed weakly as he sat up straight, speaking into the dial again. I look forward to seeing them all fry. How is he? Mari asked worriedly. Nami tied the bandage around Yosaku tightly, sighing. He's fine, she replied. The cuts are mostly superficial, they didn't cut him deeply. He did lose a lot of blood, though. The crew who had been abducted all sighed in relief at this, Yosaku laughing weakly. See, he asked, it's only skin deep. I'll be fine. You can't keep doing that, Mari shouted down at him, annoyance evident on her face. That's twice now you've gotten yourself hurt to protect me, stop. But it's my job to protect you, Yosaku replied sternly. Not to sound hard on myself, but Johnny and I aren't on the crew for our abilities. We're really just good at protecting the more valuable crew members. Nami frowned at this, not happy to see Johnny nodding along. Don't talk like that, Vivi said sternly. You both are part of this crew. Your lives are just as valuable as any of ours. Don't just throw them away because you think the others needed Mari or I more. Yeah, Nami agreed with a small smile. If either of you die, I'll kick your ass. I'll make your ghost swab Mary's deck for eternity. Doesn't mean our job isn't to protect you, Johnny noted. Nami looked over at him to see he looked deep in thought, the deck reflecting off his sunglasses. Yosaku and I want to be able to protect people who need us. We were almost not good enough back there. You fought off a priest of Enel, Reiki said, speaking up for the first time. I'd say you're plenty strong. I already said, we didn't fight him off, Johnny replied. His eyes drifted to the side, and Nami followed them. She saw nothing there, except for Mary's broadside cannon pointing outwards. Who fired the cannon? Usopp asked. Shura got hit by a cannon, but I didn't see anyone near it. Did anyone do it? I didn't, Mari admitted. Neither did I, Vivi said. Both Johnny and Yosaku also shook their heads. All eyes fell on the cannon, but it didn't move or speak to them. It just sat there, like a cannon would. No one spoke for a moment, the only sound being the crocodiles in the clouds below. Okay, Yosaku said, I'm kind of freaked out by that. We'll figure it out later, Vivi said, turning to Nami. Thanks for coming to get us. Did the others go ahead to the city? Yeah, Nami answered. We split up once you guys got taken. Sorry it took so long. Hopefully the others have made it to Enel by now. Doubtful, Reiki said with a frown. If Shiro was awake, odds are the other priests were as well. Not to mention Naga might be slithering around. So what do we do now? Vivi asked. Do we head out and leave Mary here? Unless you have a better idea, Reiki said, then yeah, we'll have to come back for your ship later. Navigating it out of here with all those crocodiles present would be difficult. Not to mention there's no body of water close to the city. We can't take her there. We can't abandon Mary here, Usopp said. That priest already tried to light her on fire. What if he comes back and burns her to ash? Do you have a better idea? Reiki asked him. Usopp could not offer a response, which seemed to annoy him as he crossed his arms and grumbled to himself. Exactly, you don't. Let's gather anything you guys still need and get out of here. Genbo and I will transfer everyone to the shoreline, and we can walk the rest of the way to the city. Johnny, Mari said as Reiki walked away from them to survey the shoreline. I have some paints and other chemicals down below in a crate that I can't carry. Can you bring it up here for me to sort through? Sure thing, little sis, Johnny said, getting to his feet. Nami watched the swordsman disappear into the cabin before looking back at Yosaku. Are you okay to go? She asked him. You can stay if you're in too much pain. As if, Yosaku shouted as he sat up and puffed out his chest. I'm good to go, big sis. You can rely on me. Nami couldn't help but chuckle at his attitude. I'm glad, she said. What would I do without my big, strong cabin boys to help me out? This made Yosaku deflate a little. Calling me a cabin boy hurts more than these cuts, he muttered, making her laugh. Get up, ya big dope, she said, smacking his head. Let's get ready to move. She helped Yosaku to his feet, ignoring his wince as he did so. As he walked around to get rid of the stiffness, Johnny returned carrying a crate in his arms. That was fast, Mari noted as she got up to walk to him. How did you find it so fast? Find it? Johnny asked. It was right at the bottom of the stairs waiting for me. Didn't you leave it there earlier? Mari made a face at this, both of them looking down at the crate. I don't think I did, she mumbled, rubbing her chin. Well, whatever, thanks for grabbing it for me. Yeah, no problem, Johnny replied. As the swordsman walked away, Nami also looked down at the crate. She then looked towards the cannon they had spoke about before, watching it warily. Something weird is going on this ship, she mumbled, more than usual. Just stay quiet, Wiper warned in a whisper. Luffy frowned down at the forest floor below them. Or rather, the giant snake slithering around beneath them. Nola had caught up to them quickly, and had been slowing them down for the past several hours. She didn't seem to know they were there, but Wiper's insistence that they needed to avoid her at all costs made it difficult to move. Can't you try talking to her, Chopper? He asked, looking over his shoulder down the tree branch to the reindeer. Chopper shook his head, looking frightened. She's not speaking a language I understand, he replied. Even then, I can tell she's really mad. I don't think showing ourselves is a good idea. Well, we better do something, Robin noted, otherwise we won't make it to the city before dawn. Luffy cast an eye towards the skyline, noting that it was indeed growing brighter. Any ideas? Zoro asked to none of them in particular. Wiper grimaced. The only thing that would distract Nola is another meal in her line of sight, he said. But we don't have anything to distract her with. Sure we do, someone said. Luffy looked up to see one of Wiper's men, the one named Bram, had spoken. I'll get her attention and lead her away from the city. Yatsubane, come with me. You got it, the other warrior replied. Luffy looked at Wiper to see he looked displeased. Don't do anything stupid, he advised as the pair prepared to drop down. Just run and make sure she's following. No hero moves. Sure thing, Wiper, Bram replied. You guys be careful too. Closer we get to the city, the more likely we'll see the priests. With that the pair jumped down, landing on a thick branch below. Hey, you big stupid lizard! Yatsubane shouted. We're over here, are you blind? Nola's head whipped around in their direction, hissing angrily as she spotted them. Ah, is the big stupid snake mad? Bram asked. Well, come and get us if you're so mad. Nola's response was to shoot through the undergrowth towards them, causing both men to reach for the dials they'd taken and activate them. Clouds shot out of the dials, causing the two to use their shooter skates and fly off in the direction they'd come from. Nola followed after them quickly, the smaller plants and trees trampled as she passed and left a snake-shaped path. We'd better hurry, Wiper muttered. Nola is impatient and disinterested in games. If she can't find them, she'll probably come back looking for us." "Agreed," Luffy said. "Robin, can you help us get down?" "Of course, Captain," Robin replied, raising her arms. Luffy and the others were grabbed on their sides by arms that had sprouted out of the trees, and they were all lowered back down onto the ground by Robin's devil fruit ability. Once they were down on the ground, Kamakiri cast her an interested look. "You pirates have weird abilities," he said to her, making her smile innocently. "Sure is useful, though." "It comes in handy," Robin agreed. Luffy saw Nezuko roll her eyes at this, but he didn't know why. "Hope you're useful ILIED," as they continued their trek through the trees. "I wouldn't be here if I was helpless," Robin said. "I suppose not, no," Wiper agreed. There was a pointed silence among the 10 of them, silently walking through the trees and underbrush. Luffy wanted to whistle or something to distract himself, but he sensed that wouldn't be appreciated. Before long, fog started to surround them. At first it was minimal and he didn't pay attention to it, but soon the fog thickened and before long, Luffy could barely see ahead of himself. "What the hell is this fog?" he asked, covering his eyes with the brim of his hat. "Where is it coming from?" "I don't know," Wiper replied, "but I don't like this one bye." The hair on the back of Luffy's neck stood up on end, and on instinct he shoved Wiper to the right and jumped left himself. Just as they left the ground, barbed wire shredded through the ground where they'd been standing. He quickly got to his feet and looked around, but he couldn't see the others or where the attack had come from. That was bad. "Zoro?" he asked out loud. "Sanji? Nezuko? Luffy were over here?" He turned in the direction of Nezuko's voice, running through the fog towards her. He soon caught a glimpse of her blue hair, but something else caught his eyes as well. Namely, the barbed wire cutting him off from them. The wires were tightly wound and so close together he didn't dare try and squeeze through them, leaving him on the opposite side. "Where did that barbed wire come from?" Sanji asked. "What happened?" "It's one of Enel's priests." Luffy turned to see Wiper was on their side of the wire, looking angry. "We've been found out." "That implies we were unaware at one point," someone else said. At these words, the fog dissipated and gave Luffy a clear view of their surroundings. He was trapped inside a massive cage of barbed wire, while Wiper and the others were outside of it. Robin and Chopper had been trapped inside with him, as well as Kamakiri and Warashi. Wiper was with Zoro, Sanji and Nezuko, with Mayushika standing with him. However, there was a man in the cage who Luffy did not recognize. He was bald and pretty muscular, with wings on his back. Unlike Wiper's people, though, his were bigger and looked usable. He had a goatee that ended in a braid, and had sharp glasses covering his eyes. "It's rather sad you thought you could sneak around an island of skilled mantra users," the man said, swinging a sword over his shoulder and resting it there. "But I suppose the desperate often try unusual tactics." "Who are you?" Luffy demanded. "Why are you wearing sunglasses before sunrise? You don't even look as cool as Johnny." The man raised an eyebrow at this, but did not answer him. "My name is Ohm," he answered, "and I'm a priest of Enel. Welcome to the Ordeal of Iron, invaders. It's a pleasure to welcome you." Of all people, Kamakiri hissed to Luffy's left. Of course it was him. "You know this guy?" Luffy asked him. Kamakiri nodded. "Ohm is second only to Enel," he answered. "His Ordeal of Iron has never been escaped from." "I'm flattered you know of me," Ohm said to him. "It's a good you've done your research. It matters little, though. Your rebellion ends here, and now." "I'm flattered too," Luffy said, making Ohm tilt his head. "Thanks for going out of your way to come to us. I thought we'd have to fight Enel and his priests together." "This is rather fortuitous," Robin said. Luffy had no idea what that word meant, but it sounded like she was agreeing with him. "We can deal with him now so he's not a problem later." "Do you really think you can fight us 5-on-1? Chopper asked, transforming into his bigger form. "We're not pushovers." "What do numbers matter when I can see your movements?" Ohm asked. "Besides, even if I do fall, I just need to stall that one." He pointed his blade at Luffy, who made a face. "Why me?" he asked. "Did you think Lord Enel did not hear your conversation earlier yesterday?" he asked. "We know all about how you are supposedly a counter to him. While I deal with you, Lord Enel will complete the maxim and destroy your friends. Then, it doesn't matter what you do." Luffy frowned at this. So Enel had heard them after all, huh? That was annoying. Wiper, he called, not looking over his shoulder. Go on ahead. We'll meet you at the city. What do you mean? Wiper demanded. I need you at the city, without you there is no plan. Well, I can't go anywhere until Baldy here gets his ass beat, Luffy replied. You're welcome to sit and wait, I suppose. Zoro, Sanji, Nijiko, go with him. He'll need all the help he can get. Sure thing, Zoro replied. Try not to take too long with this guy, yeah? Or else I might steal all the glory. Luffy cackled at this. As if, I'm the captain, I get the glory. Wiper watched their interaction quietly, before he grimaced and turned away from Luffy. You'd better hurry up, Luffy, he shouted. Remember, it's at the base of the giant beanstalk. Base of the Shanbok, got it, Luffy replied. He only heard Wiper growl in response before their feet resounded off the ground as they ran off. Ohm watched them go, lazily shrugging his shoulders. They won't get far, he said. Gedatsu will ensure that, and Satori will deal with your other friends. Other friends? Chopper asked. Do you mean Usopp and everyone else? Are they okay? They gave poor Shira a run for his money, but otherwise fine for now, Ohm answered. Once they descend deeper into the jungle, though, they'll be in trouble. I'm sure they'll manage, Luffy said, cracking his knuckles. I'll finish up here and make sure they get there safely. Ohm smirked at him, and Luffy took a step forward to start the fight. Get back, Luffy, Kamakiri shouted. Luffy did not listen fast enough, his left foot pressing down until something clicked. He looked down and saw what looked like a dial beneath his foot. And it shot out more barbed wire at him. I can't believe we're seriously continuing on without him. Wiper shouted as they ran. This was completely ridiculous. We need him. He won't be long, Zoro said to him, being dragged in the correct direction by Nijiko after he almost ran off. We'll manage until he gets there. Besides, Mayushika said to Wiper's right, it's not like we're completely without a plan. Wiper cast him an irritated glance. We can't bet on that, he said hotly. If it doesn't work, it'll take me out of the fight and screw us over even harder. What are you talking about? Sanji asked, giving Wiper a curious glance. He frowned and subconsciously reached for the weapon in question. It's a last-ditch weapon to kill Enel, Wiper replied. It was the original plan I made. If Luffy gets held up too long, we won't have a choice but to use it. He'll be fine, Nijiko offered, having drawn her pistols beforehand. Let's get to the city. Wiper nodded quickly and kept running, trying to keep his mind off of the fact that his plan was falling apart. Easier said than done. He was so distracted, in fact, that he ignored the fog closing in on them once more. Are we ready to go? Reiki asked. Usopp looked around the others to see everyone nodding, so he did so as well. Good, let's go. We're running out of time. The group had spent the last 20 minutes moving everyone to the shore and getting prepared, just now ready to set off. Usopp fell in line behind Johnny and in front of Yosaku, who were guarding either end of the group. He admired the swordsman's courage, both having received the brunt of Shira's attacks. The fact that they were willing to still fight was incredible to him. Frowning, he cast a look over his shoulder towards the altar, where Mary still lay. He didn't like the fact that they had to abandon her, but Reiki was right. She was stuck where she was, and they couldn't take her to the city. We'll be back soon, Mary, he muttered to himself. Stay safe. With this he turned around, focusing his eyes ahead of him. Hurry back, I'll miss you. Good luck. The entire group stopped besides Reiki and Genbo, who cooking over his shoulder as Usopp, confused. What did you say, big bro? He asked. Usopp made a face back at him. I didn't say anything, he replied. He turned back to look at Nami, Vivi and Mari, who also looked confused and turned to Yosaku. I didn't say it, he said, it sounded like a girl said it. Wasn't me, Mari said. Me either, Vivi noted. I heard someone speak, Nami said. Silence fell upon the crew as Reiki and Genbo also stopped to watch them with a confused look. What? Reiki asked. Something you forgot? No, Vivi replied. We thought we heard. All eyes returned to the Mary. The figurehead stared innocently back at them. Come on, Reiki said before any of them could voice their thoughts. We need to go, now. The entire crew fell in line with them again, quietly heading into the jungle. Usopp tried his best to ignore the feeling of eyes watching him. There was no way, right? There was just no way that was what had just happened to them, right? Right? Nami glanced worriedly at the sky, which seemed to be getting lighter by the minute. It's close to sunrise, she said warily. I hope Luffy's already at the city. Unless they got stopped, they should be, Reiki replied. Wiper wouldn't let something small stop them. And, what if he isn't there? Usopp asked. Reiki grimaced as they trudged through the jungle. We hope he makes it there before sunrise, and Enel wipes us out. Silence fell upon the troop at this, Johnny finally laughing awkwardly. That was a good one, big sis Reiki, he said, you're funny. It was very clearly no joke, but Nami appreciated the attempt at lightening the mood. Looking up at the trees over their heads, she watched as birds she had never seen before squawked and flew all over the place, seemingly disturbed by something. This caused the hair on the back of her neck to stand up on end, and she didn't like it. Move over, Mari, she said, moving to stand between Johnny and Yosaku where the painter was standing. They stood a better chance at surviving an attack than she did, after all. Do you see anything, Usopp? Mari asked. Usopp was standing at the back of the pack, using the goggles he always wore on his head to scan their surroundings. Nothing yet, he replied, but that doesn't mean they aren't out there. Let them pray they don't run into my 7,000 soldiers. No one is looking, big bro, you don't have to lie, Yosaku replied pointedly. Let him fantasize, Vivi said. Maybe one day he'll have some men worship him like he worships himself. Maybe we should install Usopp as the new god once we topple Enel, Mari said with a smirk. Maybe then he'll finally have his army. That'd be hilarious. Johnny agreed. God Usopp. I can't even imagine how dumb you'd look, big bro. Johnny, the only one who looks dumb here is you, Usopp exclaimed. It's dark, take off the sunglasses, man. No, it's a part of my aesthetic. How can you even see in such low light? I have good eyes. Is that why you stumble around the ship like a blind mole at night? Mari asked. I've seen you wearing those things on your way to the bathroom. That's because I'm sleepy, not blind. Whatever you say, man, Usopp said with a shrug. I'm just trying to make you as cool as me. Then go after Yosaku. He wears that head brace all the time, but no one says anything. That's because Yosaku needs a helmet on at all times, Mari said. He's in need of it. Exactly, Yosaku said. Hey, was that an insult, little sis? As the group descended into a comical argument about aesthetics and necessity, they failed to notice that they had entered into a dangerous place. A place that was dominated by one of only 5 men in Upper Yard who was feared by all, and now they were right in his circular sights. The group's bickering made them miss the floating, white spheres that had started to fade in and out from among the trees. And if you listened closely enough, a goofy-sounding laugh. This fight would have been over if Luffy was able to move freely. After stepped on one of Ohm's dialed traps that shot out barbed wire clouds, he and the others moved much more carefully. This was no issue for Ohm, who seemed to know the exact location of every single dial and how to avoid them. This was to say nothing of his wings, which he could use to hover off the ground in case he somehow stood on one of his own traps. Captain, Robin said from his right. I do believe we could end this quickly. Luffy raised an eyebrow at her, before realization set in, making him smirk. After you, Robin, he replied. Smiling back at him, Robin raised her arms and crossed them, palms facing upwards. Trace Fleur, she said. Instantaneously, 3 arms sprouted from Ohm's body. 2 came from his shoulders and latched around his neck, pulling him backwards in an attempt to hold him, while the 3rd came from his forearm and wrestled for control of the sword. Luffy smirked as the priest struggled to move. Nice one, Robin, he said. Get him now, guys. While he's held down, Chopper and Kamakiri jumped forward with him, intent on wiping out the priest with one combined blow. An interesting technique, Ohm said. Unfortunately, it seems its strength is limited by the users. In one swift movement, Ohm freed himself from Robin's clutch, the arms disappearing into a flurry of petals. He didn't even waste a single second, allowing his body to follow the motion and dodged all of their attacks with relative ease. Luffy landed and turned back, aiming another punch at him. This one, as well, was dodged and Ohm grabbed his extended arm. This is an interesting power as well, Ohm remarked as he pulled Luffy closer, who grunted as he tried to fight back. Sadly, his reduced physical strength in the sky made it harder than it should have been. Just another thing holding him back. Your body seems to be stretchy and malleable, but still holds all the psychical strength of a normal human's. Combining the two together must make you a dangerous foe. A pity your journey ends here." Luffy grunted in annoyance and tried to punch with his other fist, but Ohm dodged this as well and effortlessly tossed him away. "What the hell is up with this guy?" he asked as he adjusted his straw hat and got up. "We can't hit him at all." "It's mantra, straw hat," Kamakiri called. "He's reading your moves before you make them. It's why the priests are so formidable." "I'm impressed you natives know so much despite being so difficult to catch," Ohm said in his direction. "Don't we just have to overwhelm him?" Chopper asked. "Surely he can't handle all of us?" "Please don't be ridiculous," Ohm said. "I'm more than capable of handling a few Blue Sea rejects and Wiper's underlings. This won't be any trouble at all." "He's not really wrong," Kamakiri said irritably. "He can read all of us, it won't even be difficult for him." Luffy frowned at this and turned back to Ohm, wondering how such a broken power could even exist. The world had so many unknowns about it. "If you can't even handle this, I fail to see how you planned on fighting Enel," Ohm said. He rushed at Luffy, who tried to clothesline him when he got close. Ohm ducked underneath his attack and slashed at his back, but Luffy let his momentum carry him and jumped out of the way. He turned to see Ohm fighting against Robin's created hands, which were trying to wrestle the blade away from him again. As this was happening, Kamakiri and Warashi appeared behind him. Warashi swung a large axe down on Ohm, who still had enough control of his body to fling himself out of the way. Kamakiri grabbed something off his belt, a dial attached to a handle, and aimed it at the priest. "Burn blade!" he shouted. Clicking the dial, flames erupted from the exit and roared towards Ohm. The priest tried to dodge again, but Robin had ensnared his legs with her arms, causing him to fall over as the flames engulfed him. Luffy watched the enemy disappear into the flames, not hearing any screams. This wasn't over from such a weak hit. Soon enough the flames faded, and Ohm got back to his feet, brushing ash off of his shirt. "As I expected, fighting so many opponents makes it hard for me to deal with you all," he noted, "especially that woman's ability. Even though she is limited by her own strength, her holds are very annoying." Robin laughed softly at this. "I appreciate the praise, priest," she said innocently. "I'll remember to work out my arms after this." "There won't be any after this," Ohm said. "I just need to keep you distracted, and I'll be able to defeat you all." With this, Ohm brought his hand to his mouth and used his fingers to whistle. The shrill, annoying sound echoed around them, reverberating off of the iron clouds that surrounded them. There was a brief second of silence, and then the ground began to rumble. Luffy turned towards the sound just in time to see a massive, white dog barrel into the opening, growling angrily. "Where the hell did the dog come from?" he demanded in surprise. It reminded him of Chow Chow's somewhere 10 times bigger and angrier. "Holy," Ohm shouted, "go after the woman." The dog howled in response and turned its eyes to Robin, who was watching it warily. "Robin, run!" Luffy shouted, trying to run to her. He was stopped by a sword hilt to the back of the head, making him stumble. He rolled out of the way of the following slash and jumped back to his feet, searching for Robin. He found her standing a ways away from him, the dog still facing her. However, there was another figure in between them. Chopper, in his heavy point transformation, holding the mutt back from trampling her. "I can handle the dog, Luffy," he shouted. "Focus on the priest." Luffy grinned as the reindeer shoved the dog back with all his might, making him tumble over and knock a tree over. "I'm counting on you, Chopper," he shouted, turning back to Ohm. "I don't want your praise, jackass," he said, clearly enjoying being relied on. Shaking Luffy's praise from his head, Chopper turned his eyes back to Holy as the dog got back on its feet, clearly sizing him up. "Get out of my way, you disgusting creature." The dog spat angrily in a heavy accent, similar to Gonfal's bird Pierre. "I won't let you hurt Robin," Chopper replied, holding his fists up. "Luffy told me to protect her, so I will." "She's a sinner who must receive God's judgment," Holy replied, "but I suppose I have to deal with you first, you mangy pet." Holy charged at Chopper, who centered his gravity as he did so. The dog rammed head first into him, and Chopper slid back as he used all the strength he could muster to push the dog back. Soon they came to a standstill, neither able to move the other. Chopper grunted angrily as he tried to shove the dog away, but to no avail. If he was gonna beat this dog, he had to be tricky. Grunting, Chopper activated his devil fruit and shrunk back into his brain point, jumping off to the side. This caused the momentum Holy had been holding back to disappear, and the dog tumbled forwards before falling onto his face in the dirt. Returning to heavy point, Chopper rushed at the mutt as it tried to get up, jumping onto his back. "Take this, you stupid dog," Chopper shouted as he rode on Holy's neck like a horseback rider. Heavy fists. Chopper drove his clenched fists into the top and sides of Holy's head, causing the dog to growl angrily and try to shake him off. Using the longer and more powerful legs of Heavy Point let Chopper stay atop the dog, punching him roughly. "Enough of this," Holy shouted. "I will not be ridden by some common animal," Chopper gasped in surprise as his world turned sideways, Holy having jumped and tilted his body. He slammed into the ground hard, his leg grip on Holy trapping him underneath the dog. The dog moved quickly, holding Chopper down with his front paw as he leered down at him. "Get off of me," Chopper shouted at him, struggling against the dog's grip on him. Where was this strength coming from? He was just a dog. No, it wasn't just that. Chopper knew it was the oxygen deprivation of being so high in the sky. He was already not the strongest on the crew, so the lack of air was making it hard for him to deal with the mutt in a timely manner. He was probably going to need a rumble ball. But how could he get one? His pack was with Robin, who was standing nearby and intervening in Luffy, Kamakiri and Warashi's exchanges with Ohm. "I don't know how you've gained this power, you insignificant speck," Holy snarled down at him, "but you will not best me. Ohm has trained me since I was a pup in martial arts. I won't be taken down by the pet of some blue sea pirate." "Pet, pet?" Chopper's arm muscles bulged angrily in response to his own rising anger. "I'm not a pet," he roared angrily. With one mighty push, he managed to free himself from underneath the dog's paw and quickly transformed to his walk point, running a bit away to get some distance. He turned and retook his heavy point, rage still coursing through him. "I'm a doctor, not a goddamn pet. How dare you take God Enel's name in vain?" Holy demanded. "Screw your god and the cloud he rode in on," Chopper shouted back. "Once we're done with you and your handler, we'll go usurp that god. Then we'll steal his throne and sell it for gold. How does that sound, mutt?" Chopper's jabs were twofold. First, he was mad about being called a pet and wanted to make Holy angry too. Second, and more importantly, making the dog angry made him turn his attention to him and not Robin. That was his overall, if not only, goal. Holy, for his part, looked positively furious. Veins were bulging from his forehead, and his eyes were going bloodshot. "I'll make sure you get your punishment delivered last," Holy yelled, "so you can watch all your friends be condemned and die first." The dog charged at him, and Chopper readied himself for another push. He was caught off guard, however, when Holy jumped up and curled one of his front paws into a fist. "Huh?" he asked weakly. He had not time to properly figure out why Holy could do that, instead jumping to the side. The earth where he'd been standing crunched under the dog's blow, creating a small crater where he'd been just moments before. Chopper stared at it in surprise as Holy got up, on his hind legs, and faced him again. "I told you," Holy said, "I was trained in martial arts since I was a pup. Are you scared, you mistake of nature?" Chopper chose not to focus on the insult, and instead looked towards his pack by Robin's feet. He definitely needed a rumble ball. He just hoped the others were safe with Wiper. Wiper had no idea where the Straw Hat crew had gone. At one moment, they were at his side rushing towards the city. In the next, they had been enveloped by fog and lost sight on one another. Sound did not seem to carry very far in the fog, as his shouts for anyone to respond garnered nothing. If their information was correct, they'd been ensnared in the ordeal of the swamp. Gedatsu, one of the priests, was probably stalking him somewhere in the fog. Wiper cast a wary eye down at the ground beneath his feet, searching for dials or tripwires in his vicinity. From what he and the others had gathered, Gedatsu used swamp clouds as traps, which could quickly consume someone and trap them until they suffocated. If the Straw Hats with him were not lost, they might have been taken under when no one noticed. Wiper grit his teeth as he weighed his options. Like Ohm had by trapping Luffy and the others, Gedatsu was trying to either kill them, or slow them down. If sunrise came and Enel woke, they were all dead. The fog served as a labyrinth to trap them and leave them at his mercy. As if shouldering his launcher, Wiper cocked the handle and changed the dial that loaded into the back of it. "Face me like a man, priest," he muttered. Jet blast. The jet dial in the launcher activated, a powerful burst on air roaring from the mouth of the weapon. The swamp clouds, thick as they were helpless against the onslaught of the wind. The jet dial tore a circular hole in the fog around him, but he wasn't finished yet. Clicking the button again, Wiper fired another shot and cleared more fog, and more, and more. Before long, the fog surrounding him had dissipated massively, leaving him more aware of his surroundings. Which tipped him off to the person trying to flank him. Cocking the launcher handle again, Wiper exchanged the jet dial with the flame dial. Turning, he ducked underneath the punch aimed at his head and nearly shoved his launcher into Gedatsu's mouth. "Hi, asshole," he said, pulling the trigger. Flames burst forth from the weapon, but Gedatsu was already avoiding and slinking back towards some of the fog. "Your weapon is powered by a jet dial, Shandia warrior," Gedatsu's voice came from nowhere. "You must have countless weapons like them stockpiled in your village." "I'll make sure to tell the elder you approve of his dial collection," Wiper replied, warily watching his surroundings. "Where are the straw hats?" "Who knows?" Gedatsu asked. "Maybe they've sunken into the swamp. Maybe they abandoned you. Should focus more on yourself. After all, you face a priest of Enel." Gedatsu's words ceased to be understandable, as all Wiper could hear was pathetic babble that sounded like he couldn't move his mouth. "What the hell's wrong with you?" he asked. "Ah, my bad," Gedatsu said. "I was talking with my tongue on the roof of my mouth. Where was I? Ah yes. I'm a priest of Enel, warrior. I won't let you past me." Wiper couldn't help but grin at this, aiming his launcher towards the fog. "Then come and stop me, priest," he said, "or I might accidentally topple your false god." Wiper remained dead silent, focusing intensely on his foggy surroundings. He was completely in the zone, listening for any sort of sound. He heard a branch crack behind him, so he whirled and fired his bazooka. The jet dial inside launched a massive gust of wind that cleared away much of the fog, but he didn't see anything. Gedatsu had slunk back into the fog. Growling, Wiper focused his hearing again, listening for anything. They didn't have time for this. They were dangerously close to sunrise, and if they didn't get to Enel before he woke, then this would be 100 times harder. That was the last thing they needed. He wanted to keep going, but he risked falling into the swamp clouds if he did that. He needed to defeat Gedatsu and clear the area. Deciding on a course of action, Wiper cocked his launcher's handle again, rearming the jet dial inside. He aimed it at his feet and fired. And fired. And fired again. Wiper launched blast after blast of wind at his own feet, which caused the air to fly outwards around him, forcing the swamp clouds back. Over and over he did this, intent on either clearing the area, or forcing Gedatsu to make a sound so he could find him. He soon got what he wanted. As he cleared the fog, he heard the sound of a dial being used off to his right. Whirling, he recocked his launcher and blasted a torrent of flame in that direction, but seemed to come up with nothing. Growling, he quickly scanned his surroundings, but didn't see anything. "You're a capable warrior, Wiper of Shandia," Gedatsu's voice echoed around him. "I see why you're the leader of this little incursion." Wiper grit his teeth as he once again listened to his surroundings. "I'm the descendant of the great Calgara," he replied. "I will reclaim my people's ancestral home in his honor." "I doubt that," Gedatsu replied. "In truth, even if you defeat me here, God Enel will wipe you off the face of the clouds." "Guess we won't know until I clobber you, huh?" Wiper growled. "You're not going to defeat me, fool," Gedatsu said. "I am a priest of Enel, and as such I am trained in multiple combat arts and mantra. Gedatsu's voice went higher and higher until it cut off and he began to cough violently. Using this, Wiper turned and launched another torrent of flame, which struck true. Gedatsu cried out as he was lit on fire, his silhouette now visible through the fog. "Gotcha," Wiper growled, charging forwards. He reached Gedatsu just as the man was able to put out the flames, and slammed his launcher into his head. Gedatsu went down, but dodged Wiper's incoming punch and whirled away coughing. Ow. Gedatsu grumbled, rubbing his face. "I really need to remember to breathe." "How do you forget to breathe?" Wiper demanded, advancing towards him to keep him in sight. "Never mind that," the priest said. "Seems you've managed to find me, warrior. But what about your friends? Don't you care if they suffocate down there in the swamp?" He frowned at this, sparing a thought for the Straw Hats, wondering if they were stuck. He was also concerned about Mayushika, but he didn't have time to look for him either. "I'll save them after I defeat you," he said. "I don't have time to do it the other way around." "They may not have that long," Gedatsu warned. "Just like me, they may forget to breathe." "I don't think that'll be an issue," he said bluntly. He aimed his launcher at Gedatsu, grinning. "But in case they are that dumb, let me finish this up." He pulled the trigger, but Gedatsu was already underneath the belching flames. Wiper tried to back up, but not before Gedatsu delivered a punch to his hand, crushing it against the bazooka's handle and making him drop it. Bringing his hands up, he launched punches at the priest, but all of them were easily dodged and he got punched in the face, sending him skidding backwards. "I was going to mention it earlier," Gedatsu said, "but with mantra, you won't be able to defeat me." Wiper rolled his eyes at the mention of mantra, already knowing full well what it was. "You lot and your mantra," he muttered, eyes darting around to try and find his opponent. "Always lording it over everyone. It's one of many things that makes us worthy of working with God Enel," Gedatsu said from the fog, along with. Wiper waited for the man to finish, but he didn't. He assumed he'd forgotten to breath again, but hadn't coughed. Using the lull in combat to his advantage, he reached for the dials he'd kept hidden underneath his grass skirt. He equipped them just in time to hear a rustle behind him, and he whirled. He caught Gedatsu's punch in his hand, grinning as all resistance faded away. "Thanks," he said. Before Gedatsu could say anything, Wiper used the priest's still-connected fist to his advantage. Impact. He clicked the dial against Gedatsu's knuckles, a sickening crack resounding through the fog as Gedatsu was thrown back by his own punch's force. "Impact dials, huh?" Gedatsu asked, getting back to his feet and cradling his right arm as he assessed the damage. "I should have guessed you'd use something like that." "What, did your mantra not see it coming?" Wiper asked, raising his arms. Oh, I forgot to use it. Thanks for the reminder." Wiper resisted the urge to shout at him angrily, wondering what exactly his problem was. "Now that I've remembered, prepare to." 108-pound Phoenix. Gedatsu hadn't finished speaking before he took a slash attack right to the back, sending him flying forwards. Using this to his advantage, Wiper slammed his fist into the priest's head, sending him down into the ground with a crunch. He looked up, watching as the green-haired Straw Hat appeared through the fog. If he recalled right, his name was Zoro. "Oh, hey," Zoro said casually as he came closer, "you're over here." Hey," Wiper greeted. "He caught you in the fog too, huh?" Yeah, I guess so," Zoro said, looking down at Gedatsu at their feet. "I keep running into this guy though. This is like the third time." "You can find him through this thick fog?" he asked, Zoro shaking his head. "No, I just keep running into him while I try and find my way out," he replied. Gedatsu groaned at their feet, rolling away. "I thought the directionally challenged one could be left for later," he mumbled, getting to his feet. "How is he finding me?" "What did you just call me?" Zoro asked irritably, readying his swords. "Did you see your friends?" Wiper asked. "Mayushika?" Zoro shook his head. "No, but I'm sure the love cook is keeping Nijiko safe," he replied. He gestured to Gedatsu and said, "I'm gonna steal your kill, okay Wiper?" He made a face at this, grabbing his launcher from where it lay on the ground. "Not if I get it first," he replied. Zoro grinned at this, and the two stood back to back as Gedatsu sank into the fog once more. "We'll see who gets it first," he said. Balls. Johnny had never seen so many balls. On their trek towards the ancient city, the group he was with had suddenly entered a forest of balls. Gigantic, white spheres floated aimlessly through the sky around them, making him both fascinated and uneasy as he grabbed the hilt of his sword. "I don't like these things," he muttered as they began to advance again, slower this time. "Neither do I," Reiki said. "If I remember our intel correctly, we've wandered into a priest's trial. Satori, and the ordeal of balls." Yosaku let out a snort at this, everyone looking at him. "What?" Reiki asked. "What's funny?" Johnny's partner blushed at this, looking away. "Nothing, big sis," he said, giggling. "Nothing." You have the strength to giggle like a little boy, huh? Marianne asked, poking Yosaku's bandaged body, making the swordsman yelp. Don't do that, little sis, he said, rubbing his side. I'm tender still. Nothing about you is tender, Mari said, looking annoyed. That's not true, I'm a big softie and you know it, Yosaku said. We can argue about Yosaku's matureness later, Nami said, readying her clean attack. Keep your eyes open for this Satori. We don't want to get caught off guard. Nami's right, look out for anything suspicious. The group did as the woman asked, their eyes darting every which way as they progressed deeper into the forest. The silence, interrupted by the sound of the balls floating through space and the undergrowth crunching under their feet, made Johnny apprehensive. It was only a matter of time until something happened, it was just a matter of what would happen. He got his answer as one of the balls blitzed towards them out of nowhere. Johnny had enough time to hit the dirt, but Genbo did not. The Shandian warrior was hit by the ball, and it exploded. Johnny was flung across the forest floor from the blast, hitting his back on a tree trunk as he did, groaning. As he slowly sat up, his vision was blurry, but he managed to shake off the vertigo and look upon what had happened. Everyone in the group had been thrown apart by the blast, but Genbo had been hit directly. The warrior had flown backwards and hit a tree, his body blackened by the explosives as he slowly slid and hit the ground. Genbo, Reiki shouted, getting to her feet to run to him. Lady, get down, Usopp shouted, rifle aiming her direction. Reiki did as he asked and dropped, and Usopp fired. A ball that had been flying towards Reiki exploded high in the air, saving her. Oh ho, a new voice said, that one has a sharp eye, I'm impressed. Following the sound, Johnny looked up, high into the sky, and saw the source. There was an odd-looking man sitting on a ball far above them. He resembled his weapon of choice, his body spherical and massive. It would have been funny if he wasn't the enemy. His entire body seemed rounded, even the glasses over his eyes. How did one maintain that shape, exactly? You must be Satori, he said, getting to his feet, the priest of Enel. The very same, Satori replied. And you must be the pirates who gave old Shira a beating. I'm impressed you managed to force him off. I wouldn't say that's what happened, Johnny muttered, too quiet for Satori to hear. The priest laughed and held up his arms. Welcome to the ordeal of balls, he exclaimed. It was a hassle to move it all the way out here, so I hope you don't mind that I have a few extra hands helping me out. Johnny made a face at this, but he got his answer when another two balls soared towards them, landing on the ground. Only then did he realize they were people, round like Satori. How many spearmen are up here? Mari demanded from his left. Hotori, Kotori, Satori said. We'll be stopping these pirates here. Do not give them any room to breathe, or Enel will punish us all when he wakes up. Of course, brother, the other two spheres said at the same time. Johnny assumed they were twins, if not triplets. Reiki grimaced as the brothers on the ground got into a fighting stance, the horde of balls seemingly closing in on them. This isn't good, she said. Nami, Usopp, focus on keeping Satori off of us. You two have the longest range out of all of us here. All right, Usopp said, aiming his rifle at Satori while Nami whirled the cleam attacked. Johnny, Yosaku, Reiki continued, turning to look at both of them. I need your help dealing with these two. They may not be priests, but don't underestimate them. Got it, Johnny said, drawing his blade. Yosaku did as well, though he looked shaky on his feet. You guys are in bad shape, Marianne said, running up to them as they converged on each other. I'll help you out with paints. I'm not sure I'll be of much help, Vivi added, but I'll keep my eyes on them, looking for any opening I can find. Johnny simply nodded as Mari took out her paints, swirling her brush in orange. Adrenaline again? He asked as she painted the color across his arms, energy beginning to pump through his veins. You guys will be exhausted once this is all over, she mumbled, but at least you'll still be alive. He only nodded again as she moved on to Yosaku, painting him as well. Once she was done, they both began to circle around Hotori and Kotori, who for some reason had yet to attack. They seem to think they stand a chance, brother, one of them said. Shall we show them otherwise? The other asked. I think we shall, he said. This brother turned to Johnny, his smile unnerving and creepy. Before he raised a hand and launched himself at him. As he prepared to parry the attack, Johnny saw the source. A dial was on the man's palm. On instinct, he dodged out of the way of the attack, which seemed like the correct move as whatever force came from the dial sliced a massive tree deeply, the wood carved open like butter. He quickly got to his feet and swung his blade upwards, but the brother dodged backwards out of the way easily, laughing as he did. "Did you learn nothing about mantra fighting, Shura?" he asked. "You cannot hit me with such feeble attacks." "Great, mantra again. Did everyone up here know it?" He spared a glance over to Nami and Usopp, who were keeping their eyes on Satori. The priest himself hadn't moved, seemingly content to let his brothers soften them up. "Eyes on me." Johnny turned back just in time to parry another strike, the dial activating again and a slash coming out of it. He was successful in stopping the attack, thankfully, but the force of the wind that flew past Johnny cut his cheek, making him stumble backwards. He glanced over at Yosaku, who was engaging the other brother in a short-range exchange. Mari and Vivi watched worriedly, Vivi's eyes scanning both of them like a hawk looking for an opening. Reiki was checking on Genbo, who had not recovered from the blast yet. All in all, they weren't in a good spot. So they had to change that. The mantra ability these people had was a problem. However, back on the Mary, he'd been able to fend off Shura a little. Not enough to matter, but a little. How had he done that? Why had he been able to? He didn't have time to wonder, as the brother was on him again. He dodged to the right and rolled away before getting to his feet, preparing his sword. Sword of the Sea. Raging tsunami. Spinning, Johnny launched the ranged attack off his blade towards the brother, who ducked out of the way. Johnny watched his slash attack carve through the brush surrounding them, gritting his teeth. "This isn't going to be easy," he grumbled. "I warned you this would happen, freak," Holy said. Chopper gasped for air, laying on his back staring at the sky. Holy was stronger than he looked, and he'd been hurt badly. He used his skill as a doctor to diagnose himself with several nasty fractured bones and lacerations, but he didn't have time to focus on that. If Holy turned his attention back to Robin, she'd be unable to hinder Ohm. He had to make sure he won this. But how? He needed a rumble ball. Something nudged his foot, making him look down. An arm was on the ground, his pack in its grasp. His eyes widened and looked back to Robin, who had an eye on him with a smile. "You look like you needed a pick-me-up, doctor," she said. Holy tried to stomp on the arm, but he failed. The arm tossed the pack upwards, and Chopper used all his strength to jump and grab it. He sorted through it expertly, grabbing the rumble balls and plopping one into his mouth. The power of the rumble balls surged through his veins, his very being rippling and changing. Chopper scowled as power flooded into him. Holy looked surprised by his defiance. "Rumble. Arm point." As he spoke, his arms rippled and grew to insane sizes, veins bulging under the skin as his muscles expanded. The newly acquired strength helped him force Holy off of him, shoving the dog to the ground as he got to his feet. He took as many deep breaths as he could manage, needing all the air he could in order to finish this. "Seems you've acquired some aid, pet," Holy said, standing up on his hind legs. Chopper growled at this, glaring at Holy from under the brim of his hat. "I am not a pet," he said coldly. "I am not a freak, and I told you how this was going to go. I won't let you touch Robin." Holy barked out a laugh, readying himself. "Come then, doctor," he said. "Let's see what's stronger, martial arts." The two animals rushed at each other and clashed, the blast startling the humans present within the cage. Robin smiled warmly as she saw Chopper fending off the dog, her aid having given him the advantage he needed. "You can do it, doctor," she mumbled, returning her attention to Ohm.